In best ball, you'll often hear people say things like, we need to draft like we're right. We do that because it's incredibly hard to be right about all the different things that we need to be right about to win a bunch of money in best ball. Luckily, today I'm going to talk to somebody who happened to be right about quite a few different things and won a little bit of money last year in Underdog's Best Ball Mania 3. And we're going to figure out how we can build our teams in a way that allows us to get less things right and still win all the money. Let's do it.
1, liftoff.
Welcome back to another episode of Legendary Sickos. I am, of course, Erik Beinfort with Pat Kerrane from Legendary Upside. We are back into a little rhythm. It is chaos season in fantasy football here, so we had to shift some schedules around for our recording time. We're recording on Mondays now as opposed to Thursdays, which frankly I kind of like a little bit better, so the people have had to wait a week or so for this latest episode. Before we dive in, for almost every single one of these episodes, I have waited till the end of a 2.5-hour conversation to promote the things that we should probably be promoting. So bear with me for the housekeeping for just 1 second. If you are a best ball player, you're a sicko, you're listening to this, you probably are, and you want to use the Spike Week tools for this final month, and you want to use Pat's advice from Legendary Upside, right? All of his different strategic articles, his rankings, our Spike Week rankings, our Spike Week tools, the draft hacker. You want to use all those different things to build your final here, the final teams for this last month of fantasy football season. You can do that and get a huge discount and the huge savings. If you're signed up for Legendary Upside, you've signed up for Pat's newsletter, you can get a 40% off discount for any Spike Week subscription. Right now we have an NFL package and a monthly package, and you get 40% off using promo code LEGUP on Spike Week if you are signed up for Legendary Upside. So go, if you're already signed up for Pats, come on over, get your 40% off. If not, I couldn't recommend more signing up for Legendary Upside and getting all the amazing content. I love reading everything that Pat is putting out there. I also love looking at the rankings and kind of seeing where we differ on different guys, how much you're willing to push it on the guys that I know that you like or the guys that you hate and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's just a really good partnership for anybody that's taking best ball serious this year. So make sure you go promo code LEGUP on Spike Week and you'll get your 40% discount. Just really quickly before we get into some of the kind of stacking and getting less things right and all the chaos that comes with best ball drafting, we are in the heart of training camp season. And speaking of how hard it is to get things right, diagnosing what the hell is all going on in training camp and what matters and what doesn't. How are you feeling like right about now in the heart of draft season, but also the heart of, dude, go on Twitter. I feel like I'm at every training camp practice and I know what's going on. How are you kind of handling that this time of year?
I know it is the fire hose of training camp. In full force right now. I've been pretty happy with my ability to parse this stuff. I feel like, I think there's like a few shoes to drop. Like I could be like really wrong on something and don't know it yet. Like, for example, I've been drafting Josh Jacobs, right? I've been drafting Jonathan Taylor. And like one of those situations breaking against me at this point would be pretty concerning. Although I guess I haven't been super aggressive about Jacobs. It's more that I was underweight before and I was like, I'd like to be slightly overweight now that I'm getting a discount. But I have a lot of Taylor because I thought he was a pretty good pick in the late second before any of this contract stuff popped up. And then I'm drafting through it in the 2-3 turn or even the early third. So yeah, if like Taylor were to not play this year, then I'd be like, overall, not a high grade for me, because it's a high leverage spot. But in general, I think there's like a few spots where I thought the market would react strongly and hasn't really.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I thought Marvin Mims would like shoot up boards, and he's
too
moving up. He's going to make his way up, but it's just taking a while, longer than I thought it would. And then some of the like Dobbins is cratering, and I'm 7th round Dobbins is a gift. It's a gift. I'm going to scoop that all day. He's hugging the GM, hugging the owner, and talking with Harbaugh after practice. I don't think he's. It seems like a very pleasant hold in. I think we're going to get Dobbins playing this year, and I think he's healthy. So
Mhm.
certain situations, I feel like I'm feeling okay about how I'm reading the tea leaves, or the market's just kind of handing me stuff that I feel really good about.
Yep.
And so I feel like different from the market in a nice way, but also not like I'm putting myself on a crazy island, with the exception of maybe this running back holdout stuff, which could break against us if some tail outcomes play out.
Definitely. The the two for sure that you just mentioned that have stuck out like a sore thumb to me, Marvin Mims. We do for Roto Grinders, we do Sirius XM on the weekend. So I'm on there, and we talked a lot about Marvin Mims actually this Saturday, where I basically said, and you and I have kind of talked about this, not specifically with Mims, but like with risers or guys we get new information on at this time of year that have been going late or going undrafted and kind of chasing them up the board. That's literally what I said. Now, the nice thing about Mims is we're not really he's not really moving up that much, so you don't have to chase very far. But he's the type of a guy that if you're drafting right now, or particularly if you waited, right? If you're like, I don't want to take on the risk drafting in May and June or whatever, I'll wait till camp gets here, get a little bit more comfort, right? Deal with a little less injury risk, a little more certainty of role, blah, blah, blah. This is why you wait to draft, why you draft in August and September is for the Marvin Mims situation. We didn't really know exactly what his role was going to be, right? New regime, they got 4 or 5 different wide receivers, they got a tight ends and running backs, and who knew, Sean Payton likes to rotate guys sometimes. We didn't really know. We knew he probably liked Mims. We liked Mims as a prospect, blah, blah, blah.
Traded up for him in the second round. Like, that's a good sign.
Everything was a really good sign in terms of what the Broncos think about Mims. But at the end of the day, he did still have to usurp Judy, Sutton, or Patrick, or one of them needed to get moved. Because those are all pretty good NFL wide receivers. Now, could he do that? Of course. And I like to bet on talent. I don't really give a shit about uncertain situations. I just like to bet on those profiles. But there was like reason for, like, is he just going to be a zero all year, or like, kind of a zero all year? Now, that does not exist. Like, I can't come up with a reason to take Juju Smith-Schuster over him. Like, as a, like, there are guys going Zay Jones. Like, what is the difference between Zay Jones and, other than Zay did it last year, and Marvin Mims? Like, not.
That's where he's headed.
Yeah. So, like, I would be putting him, closer to pick 100, and he is not getting there at all. He's the type of guy that I want to draft right now, and I'm willing to chase up, within reason. I don't want to chase the Darrell Henderson rise, or the Dameon Pierce rise, or the Marquez Callaway rise, but like a couple rounds or whatever, multiple rounds, I don't care. He's not passing guys in ADP at this cost, even if he rises a couple rounds that I care about, like passing. It doesn't really matter to me. And then J.K. Dobbins, 100%. I wanted to be overweight on J.K. Dobbins when he was going around pick 50.
It was hard, though.
Yeah, because he went by a wide receiver tier break to me. And then the kind of elite quarterback break too, right? Burrow, Fields, Herbert, all going right there. The elite tight ends, Kittle, Hawkinson, Pitts. Pitts has fallen too, but it was much tougher. Now, shit, dude, like every day I keep drafting him, and the next day his ADP is even lower. And I'm like, I wanted to take a stand. I wanted to take a stand on J.K. Dobbins anyway. But now it's like, shit, my season's going to be decided by this guy because the market's just giving him to me for free.
Yeah, and like if you go on DraftKings, he's just regularly available in the 7th, late 7th. I mean, he's cratering over there. And Underdog, you're seeing a pretty big fall as well. He's one of the guys where I'm like, I don't really feel that nervous about Dobbins, like at all. He was efficient last year.
I feel more nervous about JT. I feel more nervous about JT than I do about Dobbins.
JT. Yeah, Dobbins he's on a rookie deal. He's coming off a season which was like just a pure recovery year after a devastating injury in his second year. Dude has no leverage, and he's not playing hardball with the team. He's basically holding. He doesn't want to practice. It seems like I don't know. I mean, like he would like more money, but like I don't know how he gets there. That the team, Harbaugh's saying stuff like it would be really great if he was out there. New offense would be really nice to see him out there. Like he's annoyed. But like this hasn't deteriorated, and we're getting like a 2-round discount, a 2 full round discount from where he was going before any of this came up. So it's not like I'm just putting my head in the sand and being like, I like J.K. Dobbins, I'm drafting through it. Like I'm being paid to ignore this risk. I'm being paid handsomely to ignore this risk. I've finally been able to get. I'm still actually slightly underweight Dobbins on my completed drafts, but I have a ton of slows coming in, and I'll be overweight, I think, at that point. And I've gotten some higher stake stuff in on him. And I'm just actually, when I say that I'm looking at underdog, I think I must be overweight when I look at DraftKings because he's so easy to get on DraftKings.
Yep.
He's so easy to get. So, yeah, it's just like the market. Like, there's some of these where I'm like, Breece Hall is been cratering on DraftKings. You're able to get him in the fourth, no problem on DraftKings. Yep. You're getting him in the fourth sometimes, or the 3-4 turn pretty often on underdog. That's one where I'm like, Cook didn't sign when he visited. He left New York. We might have really no reason to be freaking out about this guy at all, other than the known ACL thing, which has trended steadily, towards what they told us. Like, there's been no setbacks there. So
yep.
There's stuff where I'm like, that's a big old discount we're getting there. And then I don't know, certain guys that I thought would fall like further or move up further, like it hasn't materialized as much. So I don't know. I've been different from the market in ways that I find nice.
Normally it is or at least so far in the last few seasons where, I've really taken best ball serious. That's exploded, right? We have Spike Week, and, you guys are doing ship chasing now, obviously, leg up. The whole place the whole market has exploded, but generally it has been in the complete opposite direction of this year where, okay, we were getting all these awesome wide receiver values, right? We all remember 2 years ago before we had the wide receiver apocalypse, and all of a sudden, the whole game has changed from that moment 2 years ago to now. Like, literally the whole game has changed. And it was like, fuck, I'm not getting the teams that I want anymore. I have to do something different. I have to adjust. Am I going to chase last year? Am I going to keep chasing Pitts up? Am I going to keep chasing Gabe Davis up? Am I going to keep chasing whatever? All these guys. How do you handle that stuff? And it was almost always guys that I wanted. And I had to figure out how to do. And the guys that were falling, I was like, I don't want, and this is a horrible example. I didn't want Josh Jacobs. I didn't want David Montgomery. And so, like, then I don't care. It's like, fine, let them fall. And then actually it saved my ass because the only time I got Josh Jacobs was after the crazy fall. And so, like, kind of not exactly how we're going to speak about it in terms of getting less things right as like a pillar of your draft strategy. But it is sort of that way as well from a portfolio perspective. I don't have to really be right about Josh Jacobs. I can be underweight, and I just got the best price last year, right? It was easy. Now, this year it feels the opposite. It's harder because the guys that are falling are the guys that I was already interested in. The guys that are rising, it can be okay if you're kind of out on the risers. But like I'm definitely not out on Sky Moore. But every time I log into the app or get on my computer, he goes up 5 picks, right? Yeah. It's like the opposite of Dobbins. And so figuring out how to handle that, it was so much easier for me before than it is this year, I feel like.
Yeah, although you want to talk about getting fewer things right. Like if Breece Hall has a good year, I'm going to have a good year. That's where we're headed with that as far as my portfolio management. But I think like, the Sky Moore one is a good one because he's been a riser. I think it makes sense that he should be a riser. He hasn't risen. He's sort of risen appropriately. I think
so
it hasn't been too frothy like it was last year. He is expected to be a starter this time, which is nice. Weird, but but he's also one where like and again, unlike last year, I'll probably cool off on him as he continues to rise more. I'm at 11% now on underdog, and he's one where I'll probably finish underweight. But to your point about trying to get the best prices, my Sky will be early Sky, and I'll, if I'm at 6.5%, 7%, I'll have early Sky, and I'll feel better about that. I was always trying to have them stacked anyway, so I think I'll feel pretty good about my shares. Just as we talked through some of these guys who aren't falling, or like Mike Gesicki is like probably the poster boy of like, how is this ADP still here? He's at 193 right now, and Hunter Henry is at 205. And I tweeted today about this, like we should probably stop drafting Hunter Henry's backup ahead of Hunter Henry. That the Athletic just had like some bullet points from takeaways from Patriots training camp. One of which was burying Tyquan Thornton, which is not good because Yeah, most training camp stuff is hype. There's a reason why we talk about the training camp hype, because everyone looks good. They're running around. They're healthy. They worked out all off season. If someone's like getting a lot of negative news, I think that maybe is more important, because like that's not like what this time of year is for. You know,
Right. It's the Trey Lance. It's the Trey Lance. The warning signs went off so quickly last year with Trey Lance when Kyle Shanahan's saying he sucks to the media, because there's no reason for you to bury your own players at this time of year.
Yeah. So Hunter Henry, this one of the bullet point on Hunter Henry here was Hunter Henry is tight end 1 over Mike Gesicki, and talks about how Gesicki needs to get his act together so that the Patriots can operate out of 12 as much as they want. The idea that he's challenging Hunter Henry when they're in single tight end sets, which will, by the way, be the majority of their passing attempts, because that's how every NFL team operates. Even the ones that run heavy 12 are like doing it at like a third of passing attempts at most, more like a quarter. So you're already, I don't really understand what we were doing. But now it's like, God damn, we might not even be able to run 12 with this guy. So that's like, there's still some spot. Now I expect that those spots correct, that all of them correct. And so I think I don't understand what is happening, but I think we need to stay strong and hammer. Like, just take Hunter Henry today, like take those guys. If there's something that's not making sense, I think all of these opportunities are going to go away. And you may not agree with what those opportunities are in every case, but you should agree with this one because I'm right. But Hunter Henry, grab him before the discount is gone, because none of this has ever made any sense. I did burn a poodle taking Mike Gesicki. I feel bad about that $7. But other than that, I literally have not drafted this dude a single time. It's been obvious from the jump that he's a backup tight end, even if you look at the contract stuff. So eventually we're not going to just get to draft a starting tight end 10, 15 picks after his backup. So in some ways, I think like you have to stay strong when the market's being weird.
There are times when the market is wrong. This is not the fucking stock market, okay? The fantasy football is wrong all the time. We've just mentioned half the guys we've been wrong about the last couple of years. Trey Lance got up to the 6th round and was not even the goddamn starting quarterback for the team, okay? Sky Moore basically never played for the Kansas City Chiefs. Justin Watson was Sky Moore couldn't get on the field over total losers, right? And got all the way up into whatever the 7th round of drafts. Yeah. We all Josh Jacobs was a meme for, if you draft him, you're a moron, and set the fantasy world ablaze last year.
We're going to be wrong about a bunch of stuff.
We're wrong about a lot of stuff. Now, of course, directionally and from a macro perspective, the market is generally smarter about certain things, but also it can be for whatever reason, it can have the wrong read on situations. And the Hunter Henry one has been the single most baffling one to me, more than Dobbins, more than any of this other stuff, more than being worried about Breece, more than all this shit. I cannot figure out I have to force myself every time, because I take lots of tight ends in the 17th, 18th round, like a lot of people do. And I have to force myself to take the other guys, not Hunter Henry. Otherwise, I will have him on every fucking team that I draft. I
actually don't have enough of them. I have less of them than I thought, because I only have many guys there.
I only have 11% because I like all those guys, and I generally am doing what we'll talk about here shortly, trying to figure out how to bring the tight end into play to make it easier on myself by getting less things right. I don't want it. And technically taking a stand, you can say I have to get right. If I just draft 50% Hunter Henry, all I got to do is be right about Hunter Henry, which is not the world's worst idea, but you bring a lot of risk into your
better than doing it with Gesicki.
Yeah, you could be worse. You could take you could take the guy who's going to hold a clipboard the whole fucking time and take that in. I have invested I just looked $30 total into Mike Gesicki. So a BBM team and a puppy team.
Sorry to hear
yeah, what a fucking way. I should have wiped my ass with that $30. I would have used it better. But same thing.
I literally drafted $7 in Mike Gesicki.
It was
421 finished teams.
I don't remember the teams, obviously, but I can tell you it is a situation where I'm willing sometimes to just be like, whatever. I fucking hate this guy, but it's the last round, and I always take Hunter Henry on this team, so I'll do it once. And but I do feel like you don't have to do that in every situation, and particularly in the later rounds. I think you can say I'm right. Like you said, I'm right about this Patriots thing. The market is wrong. I don't care that the market thinks that Mike Gesicki is better than Hunter Henry. I think it's okay to kind of take that stand in certain situations. Other ones, like the Chiefs wide receiver,
Kadarius Toney was what I was going to bring up,
right,
because that's
Chiefs
one where I've been. So now I'm taking Kadarius Toney, and I got some pushback on ADP chasing today. I got some really kind of reactions when I was like, yeah, dude, I'm taking Kadarius Toney at the 8-9 turn, because I either have Burrow or Mahomes, in these when I take them. And I had very little Kadarius Toney before this. Super hard fade, but the ceiling scared me with Toney. Like, I think he does have the ceiling. I've never doubted that he has the ceiling. It's just the likelihood that he reaches that ceiling versus the amount of times where he leaves a hole in my roster as my wide receiver 3 or 4 where he was going before.
Yep.
And now it's like, well, he's probably my wide receiver 5. I don't know how many games he's missing. It could only be like 1, 2, maybe 3, right?
Or none.
But probably every time you say none, everyone cracks up because they know it's not none. And I know it's not none too. He's going to miss some. But, but technically it's definitely not none yet. Whereas like
Jameson Williams is going to miss 6 and he goes right next to him.
And it has 1 career reception. That seems like a lot of risk to take on. So, I was told on ADP chasing, Pat, there are more than 2 options. You don't have to just take one of these 2 guys.
Yeah, so, but the other ones are really bad too. Who specifically around Bateman, pick 100 Bateman. At wide right? Bateman has fallen there. He's the kind of the easiest answer.
He's the obvious. Yeah.
But like Michael Thomas hasn't been useful for fantasy football in many a season, right? Tyler Boyd is the wide receiver 3 on the team. He only goes there because he's on the Bengals and you got Bengals.
Because we need a stack. Yeah.
Right. Odell.
But I'd rather take Toney as a bringback than Tyler Boyd. Like if I have Burrow, I'd rather have Toney than Boyd.
Right. Who wins you the millions of dollars at that price? It's Kadarius Toney. It's not
Kadarius
Tyler.
Toney. He goes off in week 17. They throw a million times. Toney, does his thing. He makes some cool moves and doesn't get hurt. And we're all richer,
At this price, yeah, he doesn't need to be perfect. When he was going at pick 70 or whatever, you need a lot more. And I know it doesn't seem like a big deal. It's like 2 rounds, okay, whatever. But the tier that he has now moved into is so like, dude, he was going by Dotson and Addison and Gabe Davis and obviously the Ravens guys and all. He was going ahead of a lot of those guys. Now he's going by, like I said, Jameson Williams, Michael Thomas, Juju, Odell. Like these guys are not hard. Like these guys are not burying you. I guess Michael Thomas technically could, but like these guys are not burying you, and so the opportunity cost is like almost nothing.
Yeah, and also like he provides, I think, some real spike week potential. Just as like it's one of those games where they scheme through him and he gets a ton of targets. We know he can earn targets at a high rate. That's like the whole point. And he can do it in the right weeks. Like to me, like I know it's only 1 turn difference, but what I'm looking for, like man, this guy won't be in my starting lineup like that often, but when he does, it's going to be sweet. Like, and he's correlated because he's on. That's the other thing. He's on the same side of the board as Burrow and Mahomes, and he's on the same side of the board as Chase and Higgins. So, like, you're feeling pretty good about that stack you're putting together, one way or another. And just So, but another reason that I feel good about taking him, like, you could argue that maybe not all the risk is baked in now, or that he's going to fall further. I think you could have a pretty good case in both of those arguments. But for me, right, I was hard fading Toney before, and now I've got a chance to buy the dip on Toney, and I'm not going to be like overly precise about like getting the exact bottom on Toney. Like if Toney falls again and I can't correlate him, I'll probably sit that part out. But if he starts to become available at the 10-11, like I will hammer him at the 10-11 there. And, because again, I'm going to be able to get my exposures with him correlated, which I think is important. But even if I could get like Kelsey and Toney and not do it with the quarterbacks, if he were to fall a little bit further, I think I would start doing that. And just kind of like, as the risk becomes more priced in, draft him so that I can get exposure to the upside that I never doubted, that I always believed in, but I just didn't think it was priced correctly relative to the risk. So there's certain guys like Gesicki where I'm like, this dude's a straight up backup and I won't take him and you can't make me. And then there's guys like Toney where I'm like, I'm going to like swallow hard and fade this guy because I don't think he's priced correctly. But if that changes, I want to be aggressive.
Right. I think it's such a good example of, look, if you believe or whatever that there is zero paths to relevance for Kadarius Toney, I think you're wrong. If you think he has no upside, right, he doesn't have that tournament winning upside like we're talking about, I think you're wrong, but that's fine. Like, people disagree all the time on these types of things. But if you can acknowledge the fact that he has monstrous upside, being stubborn during the fall, and also, like you said, trying to perfectly time the bottom is like kind of a fool's errand. Like, you're never gonna be completely perfect on it, right? Okay, he bottoms out at, I bought him at 112 and he bottoms out at 120. Like, did you
It's
really
a flat range of wide receivers anyway?
And ADP, how it has to come through, like, think about ADP, right? How it has to come through is in a binary number. But really, it's literally in the name, an average draft position. It means he's going in some form of a range. And so, yes, did you get the absolute perfect bottom? No. But you also have to consider, like, this isn't DFS where, right, the price comes out, the price is the price. I get to buy it and put him in my lineup, and next week I can worry about next week. You only get to do this for the next month. Time is a factor. The amount of drafts that you're doing is a factor. If you want to have exposure to Kadarius Toney and you're really that worried about, right, as he's falling, like you said, you're going to buy him now as he's falling because this is the perfect time to get your bit of exposure on a guy you thought was overpriced before, but can win you the tournament. Carrying, like, massaging 2 spots of ADP value, right, or even like 5 or 10 spots of ADP value, and then not getting him during this fall is like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Like, you're trying to accomplish the maximum closing line value instead of accomplishing, again, like the things that we're going to talk about, like the goal of getting less things right. I'm trying to win a best ball tournament. I don't get any more money by extracting.
You don't get awards for sickest like value.
Right.
Nice, dude. You got him,
fun.
Like the lowest Tony in the tournament. Like, that's not what we're playing. That's not the game.
Yes. When I go to the bank and I tell them, look, I didn't win any money in best ball this year, but check out my fucking CLV on Kadarius Toney.
You have it all printed out.
Would you guys put that? Yeah, I'll bring my draft IQ over to my local credit union and say,
draft IQ.
Well, will you guys take? Look at this average ADP difference on Kadarius Toney. It is sick. Will you put this into my bank account, please? And they will, obviously.
I would like to spend this now.
Yeah, they will say, well, we might have considered it, but you drafted so much Trey Lance last year that it's really offset.
Your money's not good.
Your money doesn't count here. But, obviously they're being stupid, but that's like the point is, like, we have to remember and take a step back, like, what we're actually trying to achieve here.
And the other thing that I would say with Kadarius Toney, right, is that, I mentioned that he's on the right side of the board for where I want to draft him, where, on the early side of the board, I mean, and the correct side of the board for stacking. Because if you're going to say, okay, I have Kadarius Toney stacked with Patrick Mahomes, that's worth, like, in this range, that's worth, like, what? Almost a round of ADP, like maybe more. And then, the fact that he's stacked with Joe Burrow in a game we all want to have stacked. I mean, you don't want that game, like, really underrepresented in your portfolio if you can avoid it. And here's a great way not to get boxed out of it. You're going to get Kadarius Toney stacked with Burrow, stacked with Mahomes. It's just very easy. And that should, I think, alleviate concerns of, what if he falls? Well, if he falls, like, to, what's he, like, kind of pick 95 now? Yep. He falls to pick, like, 105. People have better prices, but they won't have them correlated as often. So it's really like, does he fall all the way back? And I think that could happen, but then I'm going to be very aggressive about getting Kadarius Toney at those prices. So, so to me, I'm like, okay, do it, fall. Like, I would actually prefer that, because now I can actually load up on a guy I was fading previously.
I totally agree. And it is kind of the perfect segue into what we were planning on discussing in this concept of getting less things right, which is generally, of course, about stacking and correlating and, the cheesy ass phrase of, like, I'm going to tell a story with this 18-man or 20-man team that I put together. And when that story plays out, right, I win. But the story is a handful of different things that I have said, look, this is the thing, right? You can not use your team from last season, but I love that team. Well, I hate that team because it had Tom Brady on it, and I drafted 0 Tom Brady, and him being on the winning team was not ideal. And also was 2 running backs to start, which I didn't do very often. So not great for me and the brand. But like when you think about it and you think about best ball and you think about what everybody talks about this whole summer, right, is this guy is priced at his ceiling, or they just don't like a certain guy. Like maybe you don't like Tony. I didn't like Tom Brady last year or whatever. Tom Brady was a horrible pick, flat out horrible pick for the general idea of what we think of fantasy football, right?
I actually didn't need Tom Brady, I think.
No,
I went
you
back
didn't.
and looked, and I didn't need him to advance. I don't think I needed him in any of the playoff weeks. And
you had a 2 quarterback team. You punted off.
I
your
had a
8th
2
round
quarterback
pick
team with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And I actually did the DJ Moore, Chris Godwin mini before taking Brady. So I think I could have taken Tony Pollard instead of Tom Brady.
Yeah, and really just shit on everybody. Yeah, just destroyed everybody. But there are teams out there that did need Tom Brady to win. You know, the DraftKings Millie team had I forget who the other quarterback was, but had 4 quarterbacks, and one was Jordan Love, and one was like, I'm making this up, but like it wasn't Minshew, but it was somebody like that.
Yeah,
had 4 quarterbacks.
He had the Eagles, but not with Hurts.
Exactly. But point being, also you could say that like the game stack element does, I know you didn't need Tom Brady, but you were correlating and trying to get less things right.
Point. This is the point of this show.
Yeah, literally the point is, Tom Brady ended up being the guy that you needed, but the way you built that team and correlated it together, literally the whole goal of basically every pick you made beyond whatever round 3 or something on that team was with the intention to get less things right. And it basically all played out. Now, it played out in a weird, obviously, week 17, Bills-Bengals was weird and crazy last season. The fact that you didn't need Tom Brady on that team is still like kind of bizarre, right? The way it played out is crazy, but that is the point. That is the whole point, is we don't have any idea how this is going to play out. The things like, now this isn't drafters, right? Even drafters is a little bit different. We've talked about like Kittle being more valuable than Kelsey on drafters, even though Kelsey just destroyed everyone at tight end. But the goal is to win this silly game that we're playing. And it doesn't play out in just, did you pick the best players? You notice Josh Jacobs is not on your team. Actually, 2 early round running backs are on that team. And Saquon was good, but he actually didn't even help you in week 17, right? He helped you, of course, throughout the whole season. But like, there's so many weird little nuances that I think the whole idea of getting less things right, well, like drafting like you're right and getting less things right, they're ultimately kind of the same thing. But when you kind of power them together and think about what you need to play out to win one of these and truly how insane it is, it's probably the number one lesson I think anyone should take away, like into a best ball season. When you put together that team, how do you get as few things right as possible? You don't want to hit an 18-leg parlay, because guess what? You are not going to hit it. No one is. You're not going to.
That's the thing. Yeah, so when you're putting together a lineup, right? Because the point, because I've seen some pushback where it's like, you know what, like Pat really did is he like picked the guys who scored the most points in week 17, and that's how he won. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean that's true. I did have the team with the most points in week 17, true. But like, it is. I think one criticism of my team, that you could say, well, hey man, the Bills-Bengals game didn't get played. But I do think when you look at the teams that were behind me that really could have passed me, because I did have a lead, right? It wasn't like I won with like 1 point over the next Bills-Bengals guy. The teams that were really live to win had stacked that game up. Correct. And had bet that game was going to be a shootout. Yep. And those teams could have, if that game shot out, they would have passed me. A few different teams would have passed me if that game really shot out. And I think, rather than saying we shouldn't be correlating because Pat's correlated team only won because a game got canceled, it's actually, in my mind, like, hey, that last game, if you look at the teams that were in really, really strong shape entering Monday Night Football, they were heavily correlated as well. Mm-hmm. And in a funny way, had, let's say, a ball bounces differently a couple times, my heavily correlated team gets passed by a different Sunday team. Some of the teams right behind me weren't all that correlated. And so we might say, we might be saying, well, we shouldn't be correlating because the team that won wasn't all that heavily correlated. And then I would be going, but the Bills-Bengals game got canceled and there's stacks in there. So right. It's like, it's just sort of funny that's used as sometimes as a pushback on the correlation. I think there were a lot of very good and heavily correlated teams that were hurt by that game getting canceled. And so, as we look forward to what we can do next year in terms of building out teams that have a chance to finish first, that correlation I do think is a very important lever to pull. And it is, because we're trying to get fewer things right when we build out these teams. So if you look at my team that had, the Tom Brady pick that I ultimately didn't actually need, I did take Chris Godwin and DJ Moore. And then I took Brady. I didn't go get a running back, in Tony Pollard, for example, which if I, in hindsight, take Tony Pollard. Didn't, he had a good year. But I'd already bet not only that those guys are going to be good enough to get me to the final, because that's fundamentally what I'm trying to, good enough to get me to the final. Yep. But I'd already bet that they were going to have a big week 17. Like I took, I think, DJ Moore in the 3rd round and Chris Godwin in the 4th or 5th or something. Yeah. So early enough to where I needed him to do something. And, I'm just adding to that bet. I'm not asking for anything else. I'm saying I've already made that chip is down. I'm just going to add a little bit more to that chip. And then I did that with, some of the other game stacking stuff that I did, taking Daniel Jones. The reason I didn't need Tom Brady is because I had Daniel Jones. Well, why did I take Daniel Jones? Because I had Saquon Barkley, right? Why did I take Wan'Dale Robinson later? Because I had Daniel Jones. So I'm just building out the bet. I'm actually sacrificing, if I'm doing that, right? I'm sacrificing my total ceiling, because there's almost no way that the very best possible lineup will be this, combination of all these players from the same team. Because sometimes you're taking, multiple, like I took Tyquan Thornton and Jacoby Myers, right? I'm taking and Ramondre Stevenson. Well, Ramondre Stevenson busted in week 17, but the 2 receivers taking pieces, and I had a couple of Dolphins pieces. I had Mostert, so he hits the lineup. So I had pieces from that Patriots-Dolphins game. Some of them busted, some of them hit, but I wasn't going for perfection. I was going for, there's points in the Patriots-Dolphins game, and I'm going to get them, and I'm going to get them cheap, right? So that was one thing I got right. Points in the Patriots-Dolphins game available cheaply was a bet I made. That bet hit. And that was a bet I made with 5 pieces or something, right? And so if I if I tried to play it perfect, odds are I would have been wrong. But I did sacrifice the total ceiling of the team, because I made some bets that were sort of redundant. I drafted I was right, in the sense that my bet was there's points available too cheaply in this game. I didn't draft I was right that Jacoby Myers was going to absolutely crush, right? Because that wasn't really what I was betting. Jacoby Myers at his price didn't need to absolutely crush. So yeah, you need to, I think, be willing actually to sort of take some points off the top of what you're trying to do in order to get fewer things right, because you're trying to finish first out of 441 teams in Best Ball Mania this year. 441. It's not that many teams. No. The odds that the perfect lineup is in that 441 after coming through, advancing through a 12-team league, advancing through 16 teams, advancing through 16 teams, the odds that someone has a truly perfect lineup in week 17 are extremely low. So that's not even what we're up. That's not what our opponents will have. So why would we be trying to shoot for that at the cost of blowing up otherwise really strong lineups?
You didn't even need Mike Evans. Mike Evans scored 50 fantasy points in week 17 or whatever it was last year. And you didn't even need him to win on Best Ball Mania. Now, you did need him on DraftKings. There was just an important thing. Like you just mentioned, it's still only 441 person final in BBM. On DraftKings, it's 1,200 or something like that in the $10 Millie Maker final. So, that does change the calculus a smidge. We saw Mike Evans be on that team, right? You still want to get less things right, but you may go about it a slightly different way You may not want.
You need to get more things right.
Yes,
I think in the DraftKings.
Yeah,
how many things do you need to get right?
Right,
a little more in the DraftKings tournament.
And that is a delicate balance, but it's still something you need to be addressing, right? When you get there, is okay. I need to get like I like to think about it. Well, two things. One, it's like taking a step back of exactly what you just said is like maybe I mentioned that getting less things right may be the most important lesson. Understanding the game that we are playing, and the reason why we're having this conversation is because of 100% what you just said. I'm not trying to build the perfect team. At no point in this game do you ever have, quite frankly, you would rather have an imperfect team that sneaks its way there into week 17, because it probably means you now have a better chance of winning.
That's what I had.
The 3 million. Right. You
had a bunch of leverage points because I had Tom Brady.
Yeah, you had Tom Brady. Austin Eckler was great, but he was outperformed by the Jeffersons and those guys of the world. Saquon was fine, but he was outperformed by Tyreek and AJ Brown.
He was pretty chalky, actually. Saquon was chalky.
Okay, but and which is funny because then he busted, and you happen to have that. It's just another thing that is funny and chaotic. But you're right. So you said you have to beat 11, not even all 11, because 2 people, right? You got to beat 10 teams from weeks 1 to week 14. Then you got to beat 15 teams, and then you got to beat 15 teams. And okay, now you have a little bit bigger group, but it's still 441. That's a very small field DFS tournament. If you're playing DFS,
what does it start with? It's over 600,000 this year.
Yes.
It was 500,000 last year, roughly
677,000 teams, and
down to 441.
And at no point before 441 do you ever have to beat more than 15. And now that's hard, and that's a lot because they're going to be really good team, right? We've outlined that in past shows how hard it is. But you don't need perfection at any point. What you need to do all this game is, you don't need to be perfect. You need to beat your opponents. There is a massive difference, and I don't think people think about that enough. The goal of this game and what you did last year, and I understand that, like you said, the pushback of Bills, Bengals, or whatever, you need to beat your opponents. You don't need perfection. If you needed perfection, guess who you would have needed last year? Mike Evans. And boy, would our fucking brains be in a pretzel right now if we had to go back and say Mike Evans was the worst second-round pick I can remember in like fantasy football history, and you needed to draft him. What would we be talking about?
I think we'd be talking about. I think we'd just all be asking Liam Murphy who those low advance rate players, because that's his talking point. Intentionally drafting
shitty players
picks because they're going to be low advance rate guys, and then they're going to crush in the playoffs, and then you win money. It's like, I mean, to be honest, maybe there's something to that idea, given that Mike Evans kind of was that guy.
Yes, there is something to it. I don't know how the hell you do it in practice.
You actually do it.
I think the idea sounds pretty good. If you can tell me how to do it, I'm totally down. I'm absolutely down for that. But that's the point, right? If you needed perfection, the players, like you wouldn't have wanted Saquon on that team, because guess what? Saquon wasn't perfection in week 17. He was a second-round pick that was a bust, right? Ramondre was an awesome. These guys were good picks throughout the whole year, right? Ramondre was one of the best picks in all of fantasy last year. Didn't want him in week 17. Not didn't want him, but he didn't help you in week 17, right? Et cetera, et cetera. This happens every year. Guys who are awesome, Justin Jefferson a couple years ago, or not Justin Jefferson a couple years ago, Justin Jefferson last year, and oh my God, Mark Andrews, right? Josh Jacobs, all these guys that have been huge advance rate players have failed in week 17. And so if we're trying
last year,
Travis Kelce, right? Another great example. You are only trying to beat your opponents, and knowing the level of variance that is involved in this game, and knowing that we never really have to beat that many people along the way, right? 440 in week 17 is what we have to beat. All I want to do is make it as easy on myself as possible to beat those people. And how do you beat those people? I am building a team so that these certain little things have to happen to me, and it's only a handful of them, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever.
And
not 18.
They're pretty awesome things. Like you were asking a fair amount from those things. Like, how about Austin Eckler scores a 72-yard touchdown and just like balls the fuck out? Like, how about that? That's a thing you can ask for, but like it can happen. But you're going to ask for some big things, but you're not necessarily going to ask for just 18 separate things.
Right. And you don't know which specific, like you built for a bunch of these different things. You didn't say, I'm building Bucks Panthers. You know that you probably needed something from Bucks Panthers, but you had Bucks Panthers, you had Dolphins Patriots, right? You had the Giants, you had all these different things. You didn't know which one of them it was going to be. I don't know.
Right.
It could have been any of them, right? But you knew that it was one of those. Needed to be Brady, Daniel Jones, or Tua. Needed one of those games to blow up. Obviously, you needed, like you said, Eckler. You've made the bet on the first round pick. That it is what it is. Now you need the first round pick, but
right.
You didn't know. You're just putting together, right? That was, let's call that. There's your 5 or 6 things that you had. You needed something out of those games. You needed Eckler, right? You probably did need, something from Godwin, DJ Moore, because they were like some of your first wide receivers.
And they ended up being really low owned. I think about 1% of the field had every one of those 3. So that's the other thing about, like, when you don't need perfection, you don't even want perfection, is because you're able to sneak in several highly drafted, low owned pieces into the final, on the backs of other players who are overperforming. That's definitely better for you. If you had the perfect lineup, you'd have every guy who was crushing entering week 17, and now you need them to, like, crush even harder and together, and it becomes a little thin. Like, I think fundamentally, right, we're flipping over a card on December 31st or whatever the Thursday is that day. But you flip over that and it goes, here's what I need. This is what I need to win $3 million. That is the game. Everything that happens before that is just a precursor to the game. It's qualifying entries to the game. The game is here, and it's going to be essentially handed to you, because you're not going to remember unless you drafted like a handful. I'm not going to remember, right? Someone's going to hand me, here it is. Here's the team that you now care about. Here's what it looks like. And you want to go through and go, how does this win?
Yep.
How does this win? Right? You're going to go, okay, here's what I need. I need this, this, this. It's highly preferable if you can go, oh man, okay, I need a huge game, out of the Bengals and the Chiefs, or I need this Jaguars Panthers game to really blow up. Right? That's one thing I need. It's not going to be the only thing, but I need that. I need Breece Hall to have a big week again because he's crushing. I need, whatever. So you need like a few things to go your way, but what they are, and how much leverage you're getting. I mean, there's really no way to predict that. I think there's a few levers we can pull. You can draft running backs and quarterbacks together a little bit. Maybe you got a quarterback in who's pretty chalky, but you've got a running back that he is on the same team that's not as well represented because he's he hasn't been scoring points because the quarterback, you got Taylor and Richardson, and Richardson's chalky, Taylor's not, something like that. But generally, that's going to be very chaotic, and you're not going to know until you get there. But at least you would like to be able to see, I'm not just betting on 18 random dudes. Like, here's your 18, you get 2 cards, right? 2 choices. Here's 18 random dudes, root for them, or here's 5 kind of things that need to happen this weekend.
Yep, it is. I also think back to when Pete and I, a couple of years ago, the year Liam won, and Pete and I were making a run up the board in BBM, had a pretty good sweat. It was almost like the inverse of your team, right? You were like, all right, Eckler, buddy, Eckler and Saquon, or one of the two, I need you, right? You were like, yeah. I need you. Well, that was Devontae for us. We took Devontae, CeeDee, and Keenan Allen actually on that team. And we were like, guys, probably 2 of you got to come through for us, because we bet on only 7 wide receivers or whatever, and the rest of them suck. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have a lot else. That's like, you didn't have, you had Ramondre in your back pocket, right? But and Mostert obviously hit your lineup, but like, you were counting on something from Eckler, Saquon. Same thing. We were counting on that. Then we had a couple games. We were like, it was Cowboys Cardinals that year. We were Dak, buddy. we need you. And on top of that, we had like all low owned guys basically, and you kind of had a shit ton of low owned guys on your team too. And so what does that mean? You're like, well, kind of need Justin Jefferson not to play, not to blow. We were like,
that's so true. I needed Justin Jefferson to have the worst game of his career. That's a big thing to ask for.
Yes,
but it happened. That happened to happen. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is, when you think about getting fewer things right too, like, think about how crazy the things that you're asking for even if you're only asking for like 6 things. All right, I need Austin Eckler to have the game of his life, long touchdown on top of like already scoring. I need Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver this year, to have the worst game of his entire career. I need Tom Brady to wake up and start throwing touchdowns to Mike Evans like it's 3 years ago. Like these are crazy things. But if you can maybe ask for a handful and then actually to come through. But if you're asking for, a dozen, 15, 18 things, it's just not going to go your way.
Right, because you're also going to need, like we just mentioned, the fades. I also conveniently left off. Pete and I did have Jamar Chase when he scored the 4 touchdowns, 50 point game, same thing. But you need, even if you draft 18 individual players, no correlation, no nothing, you need obviously to hit 8 of them yourself, right? Which is already tougher than having a quarterback stack with a wide receiver, bring back, whatever. It's already tougher. You've made 1 or 2 more bets at least. You also still are going to have to make so even if you have Justin Jefferson, right? You're saying, I just need Justin Jefferson to come through. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL, and he does. You still need Mike Evans to not happen. You still need, I don't want to really do the Bills-Bengals thing, but you need the Bills-Bengals game to not be canceled. You need, or low scoring. You need, whatever, tight end, whoever Travis Kelce. You didn't have Justin Jefferson. You need Travis Kelce to separate from the tight ends, which seems like, no big deal or whatever. Well, he didn't do it in week 17. He doesn't do it every week, right? You need him to separate in such a way that your first round pick at that position is really valuable. You can't have the Evan Ingram 40 ball like we had in week 15 or 16 or whatever it was last year. Right. You can't have that when you have Travis Kelce. And you got to, that's a lot of tight ends you got to fade, right? Having a multi-touchdown game or whatever. There's so many that I don't want to have, right? When you said you flip over that card, I'd be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that's it. That's how I win. Those 5 things, right? Justin Jefferson fails. Those 3 games do well, and Austin Eckler. Boom. I see my path. It's really straightforward, right? And like I said, for Pete and I, it was
the other one I guess would be George Kittle has a big game, or no one else has. No tight end has a big game. And I had George Kittle scored a touchdown, I believe. I think he did. And Mike Gesicki also scored a touchdown, and either guy could have hit my lineup, and it would have been fine. But yeah, that's
we found out why Gesicki is. That's why Gesicki keeps going so high. Is he came through in week 17 last year?
I guess
we've learned that's all that matters over the course of the last 2 years is week 17, and Gesicki is a week 17 champion apparently.
Well, Gretz makes fun of me because I just tout every single player who was on my team in some capacity, but Gesicki is the exception. I've been burying him.
Yeah, so you're not total, you're not a total hypocrite.
See?
But
I'm objective.
The two, Tom Brady is retired and he's on all of Green's Superflex teams or whatever.
He's gonna play for the Raiders, man.
Yeah, he might at this rate if the Jimmy G practice reports keep coming out that the guy can't complete a pass. But there's 2 kind of phrases that I really really like that apply so perfectly to this, like get less things right conversation. And the very first one, we've talked about it a bunch. I think Pete might have said it first, or we've kind of stumbled across it like as collectively as a group. But it is basically the idea of do you prefer to be right or win money, right? And it's kind of like what we talked about with this whole game thing. If you want to come in and say I got the best player takes, and maybe you there's a 1% of people out there that are better able to pick players.
Yeah,
I agree. I think in this game, it is less advantageous to be able to pick the best. Right. If you pick Josh Jacobs, no one is saying that's a bad thing, but he didn't actually help you in week 17. Right. Justin Jefferson actually hurt you in week 17. Travis Kelce hurt. If you pick the right guys for the whole season, it's a different thing than picking the right guys for week 17. However, right, there are some people that are good at it. But most people, including myself, I think I have an edge in a handful of different players, right? Like I think I can diagnose the Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki thing better than the average person. I think I'm able to find, right? Jerome Ford. I was drafting Jerome Ford in the big board. Like I think I'm able to spot some of those little things here and there, but it's like a handful of situations over the entire play. I don't know better between, Zay Flowers and Bateman. I don't know. Flip a coin. You tell me. I don't know. I have opinions, but I don't actually have an edge in a lot of that. So but even if I did, the goal of this game is not to be right. And that sounds crazy, but like I'm not setting out to predict the future. There are other avenues for me to make money at predict, right? I can bet player props, I can bet futures, I can bet all this different stuff. I can play DFS, right? I can do all this different. Wheels up, Sam Howell, by the way, week 1, 4,900 on DraftKings against
this.
the
I'm in
Arizona
on.
Cardinals.
This I'm in on. I mean, I think Sam Howell's gonna be fun. So
he's gonna lose me a lot of money in best ball, but we're gonna get it all back in week 1 against the Cardinals. But like you are not. Once you can get that through your brain, and it is hard, honestly, it really is. It was hard for me in DFS for a long time. I've written about this. Like I got my ass kicked in DFS for the first multiple years that I was playing because I came in and I was pretty good at fantasy football. I had played football. I understand the sport of football. I had coached football. Like I was the I know better guy. I came in and I said no, and I do like to watch the game. I used to like rewatch games. I just like kind of the X's and O's of football and all that. So I thought I knew better. And frankly, I probably did compared to most opponents, but it didn't help me win money. It actually actively made me lose money more. And so I was trying to be right. I was not trying to win the game of DFS. And once you can realize in best ball, it's actually kind of freeing. Frankly, once you can like realize that, yeah, there might be a couple guys you have an advantage on, but the rest your goal is not to accurately predict the future for all of these guys. Your goal is to create best ball teams that can win you $3 million or $300,000 or $100,000 or whatever. And once that like really sinks in, you might take the falling Kadarius Toney, even though you hate the guy. You might take the falling Kadarius Toney because it allows you to better have a shot at winning this tournament as opposed to being right about Kadarius Toney. You could be right about Kadarius Toney and end up being wrong in terms of losing. You will still lose money because you're wrong.
Right. You can be right about Kadarius Toney and still lose to a Kadarius Toney team.
Yes.
Because like what I would say, if you're thinking about fading these guys, this is why the Kadarius Toney one always made me nervous and why I want to draft him at a discount, even though the discount comes with him being injured and missing some of the season probably. It's not like a free market panicking over nothing discount. I mean, it reflects like a real change.
Yeah.
But it also is a significant discount and moves him into a different tier of players and, everything we talked about before. When I think about, look, I genuinely think like, it's hard to like think about this backwards because we're so used to fantasy football where you're trying to get to the playoffs and then you have this great team, you're trying to win in the playoffs, but like it's 4 different rounds, and truly the most important round is the final round. And so like it doesn't really matter at a certain once guys are at a certain price, this kind of all changes. Like the further into the draft you go, the less I'm going to care about what you're going to do for me in the regular season. And the more I'm just focused on, can you spike for me in week 17? Does this player make sense to bet on to spike in week 17? Because is it sort of a new random dude I'm adding? Like Jalen Hyatt, I will occasionally, if I need the wide receiver, just throw on as like maybe he spikes in week 17 play.
Yep.
But I much prefer it if I got Matthew Stafford or Daniel Jones, because then I've already bet on that. Or even if I have other pieces from that game without the quarterbacks, I've already bet on that game to do something. So, Hyatt's maybe the thing that speeds up that game. That's why all these other guys are, in this high scoring game environment.
Cooper Kupp and Jalen Hyatt feels like a pretty clear way to see and envision a week 17 game that goes really well, right? Hyatt catches 2 long ones and Cooper Kupp just dominates on the other side and catches 15 balls or whatever, like he does. Like it seems pretty easy to see that path. So like
exactly. And like if you don't have Stafford, like who cares? You might prefer to have him, but what if you have Jalen Hurts or something and he also blows up? So so that's why I like kind of mini correlations too. But yeah, I mean, if you're thinking through like Kadarius Toney, or a player like that where you're like nervous about being in a fade position with them, I think the question I'm trying to ask is like, at this price, can this player, be someone that I flip over that card in week 17 and I'm like, okay, let's go. Not can I get this player to week 17? What happens if I see that they are on my week 17 lineup? Is that making me psyched or not psyched? And with Tony, I think it's pretty clearly psyched.
Yeah, yes.
You know, and then you can argue about, and you and I had a difference of opinion on this. What price makes sense to, bet on him to be on that week 17? I didn't think it made a ton of sense to bet on him to be on the week 17 team at a late 6th round price or early 7th. I do now at the 8-9, but it just comes down. We're essentially saying how likely is he to help you get to week 17? How likely is he to really smash in week 17? And so everyone's going to be a little bit different on questions like that. But I think the fundamental thing, what you're asking yourself, can this player win something for me in week 17 is really the fundamental thing.
Absolutely. And I think that there's so many like phrases. I'm clearly getting older because I have all these catchphrases and everything that I latch onto. But so like the idea of basically what you just said is, what do I win when I win? Right? Which sounds like stupid.
What the
Dinkmeyer, the dink piece.
The dink.
What like if this player hits, what does that mean? Right. And part of why I didn't draft Tom Brady last year was because at that price, I know it's position also, right? Pocket passing, old quarterback.
I didn't draft a ton of Brady either, by the way. I drafted some of them.
I wrote a fucking whole article about don't draft the Bucks, and then Mike Evans drops a 50 ball in the finals. I felt like a goddamn genius all season, but old quarterback, right? Just there were lots of issues. But the biggest point was, what do I win if Tom Brady is a hit? A pocket passing quarterback that needs to do what he did in week 17. But look at what happened. What did you win when Tom Brady went nuts? Daniel Jones matched him because the rushing quarterbacks can do it really easy.
Yeah.
And so he smashed, absolutely. But he didn't do what Hurts and Allen and Lamar. Tua scored 40 in a game. Like he didn't do. It wasn't such a burial, right? Even I'm not saying Joe Burrow is a player that you want to fade, but 2 years ago, right? Jamar Chase had the monster game that you needed. Joe Burrow was the quarterback one actually in week 16 and week 17, but it was like 32 or 33 points. There was a bunch of guys that scored 25. You could have won with 4 or 5 different quarterbacks, right? And so that whole like, what do I win when I win with the Brady, Aaron Rodgers in recent years, right? It's like no one is doubting that they're awesome. It's just that when I flip those cards over, if I have Daniel Jones at low ownership like you did, I would rather have that and than pocket passing Tom Brady on that team. Again, this isn't to say don't draft Tom Brady or don't draft pocket passers. That's not the point of all this, but it's what do I get when I flip over that card in week 17? Like you said, when I flip over Kadarius Toney in week 17 and he's on my finals team and he's correlated with the bank, right? I got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Kadarius Toney. You tell me if you feel pretty good about having that. I do. Even if he's like kind of a gadgety player.
Yeah, dude.
He could score 3 fucking touchdowns as a gadget player in week 17.
If he's healthy, I'm pretty psyched about that.
Mm-hmm. Kelsey told us, I know that he's like this funny meme, right? Tony is a funny meme, and it is funny. The guy is made of pixie sticks. But like Kelsey was like, yeah, this dude's important to us. We really hope he gets back. We need him back, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think all indications are that you would want that guy on your team at the price that you feel comfortable with when you flip over those cards in week 17. Yeah. There are guys, Juju is like the antithesis of this, of Tony, where like, do I ever give a shit if I flip over the cards in week 17 and Juju is on my team? Outdoors, in Buffalo or New England, I don't remember which place it's at, against the Bills with Mac Jones or Bailey fucking Zappi as his quarterback. Like, do I ever care about this for Juju? I don't personally. Maybe you do, but I don't. And right. And so that's what I mean. Like, what do I win with Tony versus what do I win with Juju or Adam Thielen, right? Or those kind of guys. Like, that's what I'm trying to. What do I win when those things come through? And it's because I'm not trying to be right. I draft a lot. I draft Tony I drafted a lot of Gabe Davis last year, right? I draft a lot of those kind of polarizing type players. And the truth of the matter is, most of the time, I don't believe it. Like, I'm not betting Kadarius Toney overs on his season-long player props. I wasn't doing that with Gabe Davis or whatever. It was, I saw, what does the win, when he wins, what does it look like? And I see this, I see Pat's bank account as my bank account. I'm not going to deposit my CLV anymore. I'm depositing $3 million into my bank account, right? I see that. And so that's where like all of that stuff comes from. And I think it's hugely important because like the getting less things right also plays into this. When you mentioned like how you're building your Toney teams, it's like we're combining all this shit. Toney, I get a Burrow, Chase, Toney team through into the final, right? Maybe you throw on Irv or something like that, and you're like, boom, shootout time, baby, in this game. Because I flipped those cards over, and you're goddamn right. I'm excited, but heading into week 17, and that's all I really care about. All I got to get is that one thing right, and it has the requisite upside. Boom, easy game.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like if you knew you were going to get that team into the lineup, you would want Toney to have been a bust to that point.
Exactly.
Because his single week target earning ability or gadget play touchdown scoring ability is really strong. So yeah, I mean, if the guy has the single week upside, then you're psyched to have him as a part of that team. The other thing I would say is that because I will draft boring players, right? So some of this applies to the week 17 stuff. I think that's the most important part of it. But I think it also applies to just roster building in general, where let's say, for example, Breece Hall. I draft a lot of Breece Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm also more likely to draft Samaje Perine or Jamal Williams. I don't like Williams that much, but I will. He kind of ticks up a little bit for me when I have a Breece Hall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more likely to draft 6 running backs with a Breece Hall team that, normally with a 3rd round guy, maybe I would only draft 5.
Yep.
I'm more likely to, take guys with a little bit more job security early on in the season, because Breece Hall is going to smash for me down the stretch. That's something that I have bet this team on. If you don't take Breece Hall because you think he's going to be okay down the stretch, because he's not going to be very good in the early season probably. So now he's just a bad pick if he doesn't crush down the stretch. So I bet on that upside profile to really come through for me. So now I'm trying to get fewer things right. So I already know that's going to happen. So now it's like, how do I help this team get there a little bit easier? Like I know that like I can probably sacrifice a smidge of late season pure raw upside. So Deontay Foreman versus Roschon Johnson. Well, if you have Breece Hall, Deontay Foreman, pretty easy for me there. Roschon Johnson could take over the backfield. He could be an absolute home run. But I don't need, sure he could, but what are the odds of that happening compared to, I know Foreman's like repping with the ones right now. He's going to have
the odds of it happening in the first month or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
When this team's kind of hurting for points. So I'm like, plus I already have my late season hammer. Like I already know that Breece is a smash. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken him on this team. Mm-hmm. So in this universe, Breece is going to absolutely crush. And also in just the other universes too. But in Foreman, I have a guy who can actually help me get there. And, so I don't need to like make a second really high upside late season bet. Yep. Not that you couldn't, but I'm going to break ties to the guys that are going to help me get this home run of mine to actually matter, to actually get to where it matters. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I don't think about advance rate or, but I do think you can kind of apply this to roster construction. Another example would be like last year I took Raheem Mostert and Sony Michel on that team with the idea I'm just going to get one of these guys right, because that was a running back start. Those two dudes were going to hit for me. I knew that. Then I took Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be a smash. I know that. And now I just need to I'm going to take 2 shots at finding one guy. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to get Dolphins, not Chase Edmonds running back correct. I'm going to spend 2 picks on it. Right. So you could do that with Penny and Gainwell. I've done that. Eagles running back, not DeAndre Swift.
I just did that the other day, actually.
Yeah.
First time.
I mean, I think that's like Eagles running back scores points and DeAndre Swift isn't the guy. Like I I think,
which also might be true. Which also might just be factually true right now.
Yeah,
which feels.
So,
I didn't draft. Praise Jesus, I haven't been drafting much Swift like at all. So that would be nice if I actually got one of these backfields right for once.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually close even with the field with Swift, just because I think that team's going to score a bunch of points. But it's like, I think I'm overweight. Yeah, pennies really. The guy I've played it through primarily, but I'm overweight Gainwell as well. So, but I mean, I'm willing to take those guys together just because I think Swift is a fairly easy dude to bet against. Like we just saw how it could go wrong, and then the Eagles are going to score a lot of points in general, and probably a fair amount of points on the ground. And like, if you also have, if you bet on another quarterback, I think taking 2 stabs at the Eagles to score their points through their running backs that week in week 17 becomes appealing. So you're sort of like, there's different ways that you can do this, not just, thinking only about the week 17 part of it. Some of it can come down to the roster construction element. Let's say I have JSN and Quentin Johnston. Well, then all of a sudden Devontae Parker starts to look pretty appealing. Veteran routes, just get me there. So I will take Robert Woods sometimes. I've cooled on it a little bit because I haven't heard his name from like any beat writer in a month. That seems bad, but but there's like boring dudes available later that you can kind of help get you there in the same way that the running back can help get Breece there. One other thing I would say is that, okay, let's do a hypothetical. You got Diggs, you got James Cook, and then you've got Hunter Henry and Devontae Parker. So now you're in your 18th round. So those teams play each other, right? So you got 4 pieces from that game. Do you tack on Mac Jones, or do you take a different dart throw from another game entirely? And to me, the answer would come down partly to how big is the final week of this tournament, how many teams advance through each playoff round, how right do I need to be? That would be an example of you're asking the question, how right do I need to be? How many things do I need to get right? If in Mastiff, where it's 6 of 12 and then half, it's like 3 of 6, 3 of 6, 1 of 30, I think I'm just taking Mac Jones. Just like making sure I'm advancing. If it's DK Millie, or let's say there's a hypothetical format that had like 20,000 people in the final, like I am not taking Mac Jones.
I'm actually taking. I want this year's Eli Mitchell on that team or whatever.
Off running back.
Yeah, let's scratch. Like, find me CPAT, baby. Let's go. I know he wasn't running. He was a wide receiver on underdog or whatever. But you get the point. Find me that dude. Like, it's funny you had Sony Michel. That was the guy who carried Pete and I that year.
Yeah,
he was on the page. Sony apparently now retired.
That's probably why I took him, to be honest, because you guys had him on your team the previous year.
Exactly. That's why I take Mike Gesicki in those 2 teams because he was on yours. But Sony, what a funny story the Sony Michel story is, by the way. First round pick, right? And just weird. And then on the Patriots. And no longer on the Patriots, and lands in the absolute nut spot for fantasy as an 18th round pick. But why was he so powerful? Well, of course, when you hit a scratch off running back in the 18th round that turns into a workhorse on a pretty good offense, that is the best thing you can do in all of fantasy. Because Sony Michel was projecting as basically like a top 10 running back, and you got him in as with your last pick. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. But he was also not taken literally not drafted in that Best Ball Mania 2 or whatever it was, not drafted very often. And so, as you said, thinking about you said the Mastiff, like, I don't need that. Let's just fill the roster spot with a known quantity who makes sense on this team, right? It probably helps me a little bit, keeps my floor up at quarterback, which is important here, right? All these little things in the
and that's an extreme example, both in terms of like it's a high stakes tournament and it's very flat in terms of who advances. But a lot of tournaments across all different price points will have different final week sizes and how many teams advance through. And like Best Ball Mania is 1 of 16. Some teams are 1 of 10. Like I think even that is like a decent difference. Some of the stuff that's not super high stakes is like 4 of 12 advance. I think you want to. Maybe you can get away with playing that a little more conservatively. smaller final sizes, like is the final size. It's interesting. I think the Pomeranian and the puppy, I think the puppy actually had the smaller final.
I think that's right.
So it was like, you actually, to me, I was like, oh, I'm going to play the puppy a little more conservatively than the Pomeranian. The Pomeranian, I was actually like, because of the bigger final, I was like, I want to be a little less correlated, because like, would I overstack? Would I take Anthony Richardson? On which tournament would I rather take Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and Jelani Woods, right? You might say you should never do that. But like, let's say you had to do it in one of them. To me, it's the puppy because it has a smaller final. And I know for a fact that I'm not going to be 100% right about that. But Anthony Richardson goes nuts is a bet that can pay off more easily with some wrong pieces attached to it in a smaller field.
Yeah, I like it with the Giants actually. Is like Daniel Jones is at a very nice affordable price, and everyone besides Saquon Barkley and Darren Waller, all the wide receivers are cheap as hell. Do I have any idea who it is going to be? I have no fucking idea. But if you want to tell me, let's just take a bunch of these Giants and be like, two of them are going to miss, and two of them may not make the goddamn team because they got so many wide receivers there. You know what I mean? It is a disaster. I don't know. I mean, I feel pretty confident that Jalen Hyatt's going to make the team as a third round rookie or whatever. But like, but you know what I mean? Like Paris Campbell seems like he's this guy that's popping up. But if you told me, that it was Hodgins and Slayton and Hyatt or fucking
Paris Campbell was really having a great camp, I don't think we'd be hearing about Cole Beasley.
Yeah, exactly. Cole Beasley, Sterling Shepard, the corpse of Sterling Shepard pops up every single season, and we're just like, yep, he's back running routes in the slot for the Giants. He's got one, he's like a freaking pirate. He's got one leg left now. The guy's got hurt so many goddamn times. He's got a peg leg. Yeah, he's got a peg leg. But he's out there. But
okay, though, he's a technician.
Yeah, exactly.
Got away from him.
Yes, no, you absolutely cannot. Peg leg and all. But like, I don't know which one of the Giants it's going to be. But in certain formats, I drafted Daniel Jones. Maybe I didn't get one of the other two guys. Something just happened, or I wanted to set up a late round Giants thing, which I think is totally viable. I don't know, give me all of them. Okay, Paris, Hyatt, Slayton, welcome aboard. Welcome to the squad, guys, because one of you is going to be good. Maybe two. Maybe all of you. Probably not. But I don't care in that format. Like you said, DK Millie, I need, like, I'm not saying don't double stack or whatever, if no one is saying that, but there becomes this balancing act of
I want to betting against yourself.
Yeah, you can only bet against yourself so many times. You can do it, and it's important to hit on stacks, and you do have other benefits of that correlation, but you don't want to do it too much because you need as many shots to find that Sony Michel, Eli Mitchell, Cordero Patterson, whatever, to find that guy, because you're going to need it to beat 1,200 other teams. We talked about I don't need to, I don't need to be right. I just need to win. I'm just trying to win money. This is, I don't need to find the nuts in, like you said, the Mastiff, or even in the puppy or whatever. To beat 100 people, not that big of a deal. I mostly just need them to fail. Obviously, I need to score points, but like, you don't need to hit the nuts. This is the other like big thing from DFS for me. When I learned to finally stop being a moron and build some decent DFS teams, my goal on every single slate is actually not to build really the best team. It is to build the team that wins when all my opponents fail. Right? I want to win the low scoring slates. I don't want to win the slates when the DK Millie on an NFL Sunday is 350 points. I ain't winning that one, because guess who all went off in that week? Everybody that's high owned, because everybody's scoring a bunch of points, right? I want to win when it is 175 to win that tournament. And all you needed was 22 points out of your quarterback and those two random guys who threw touchdowns to, right? Because everybody else's team failed. I want to win those weeks. And the same shit is for best ball. It's the same way, but you have to go about it kind of like you said in slightly different ways across all these tournaments. But that's like the getting the less things right, is because I'm not trying to, I know all the Giants wide receivers aren't going to hit, right? I know all the Colts are not going to hit, but I'm doing that because look, I'm just going to get that one thing about the Colts right, and my opponents are going to fail, and I win. Exactly. It's like almost that easy.
Exactly. You're like, because if you're in a 1,200 person final, and it's like, oh, I already bet on Pittman and Pierce. Do I want to tack on Josh Downs? Like, hey, maybe not. Like, maybe we got the double stack. Let's move on to trying to get one other thing right. Maybe it's a very important thing. Maybe it's a leverage running back, and that could be the key piece to you winning this whole thing. It's probably worth venturing out and trying to find another thing that you're going to be right about. But yeah, if you've already bet on the Colts are going to score a bunch of points in week 17, then like bet on that again. And even if it means betting against yourself a little bit in terms of, okay, maybe Michael Pittman is actually pretty bad pick. Like you're drafting, because there does come a point if you over correlate where you're like no longer drafting as if you're right with like Michael Pittman was a good pick in the 6th round.
Mm-hmm.
But you are drafting like you're right in that Anthony Richardson is going to blow up in week 17, and you just want to make sure you have all the receivers that are on the other
because
end of
someone
this.
is going to do it. It actually, at that point, it's not that it doesn't matter, because it does, but it matters less that Pittman was the expensive pick, because you have said a Colt is going nuts because Anthony Richardson is going nuts. I need that guy. I need him to win this small field, right? To win this small field. The huge field.
And I would say BBM still kind of counts as small field.
I think so. So. To win the DK Millie, if you drafted Pittman in the 6th round and Alec Pierce, and then it's Josh Downs, it's like, I'm not saying you can't win that way, but you've made it a lot harder on yourself in the stuff where it's
less appealing.
And 100 people, even like I said, 400 people or whatever. If you lose, Mike, I mean, you won without Saquon Barkley, right? Like, I'm not saying we want to actively try to win without our top picks, but you can obviously do it. You get 18 selections.
Here would be the argument for it, I think, is that because to the low scoring slates point, which is, people talk about that a lot. It's something that I've tried to get better at with DFS is, trying to set up my teams to win when there is a low scoring slate. And that's where correlation really helps you, because you did sacrifice total possible ceiling in order to not have to get as many things right. So when does that really pay off? When total possible ceiling is actually not that high. Right? It just weren't that many points that weekend. And so now being on the few right things are really important. That's like I've seen Leone's lineups. Like sometimes he had one like horrendously gross lineup with Ben Roethlisberger that he won with, and it's like a sick lineup, but it was sick because he's willing to go, hey, maybe there's just not that many points scored this weekend, and I'm gonna get on these spots that no one else is gonna be on, and when they come through, I'm gonna have the points. No one else can have the points because they're chasing these like chalkier guys that way. Everyone else is searching for the points in kind of the same spots. DFS with the ownership stuff we can't really replicate that exactly in best ball. It's a little bit more random where kind of the chalk and stuff falls.
But you can we've talked about manufacturing it. You can't manufacture one. You can't manufacture one. I can't say in any micro example, right? Like Saquon is going to be chalky, so let me put Daniel Jones and Jalen Hyatt on this team. You can't specifically point them out, but over your entire portfolio, you can do those little things that help set you up if it falls your way to have that leverage. Like you said, it's small. That is a micro lever, like a micro lever, but that's a way that you can at least think about it. It's very different from DFS though, to your point.
But I think the other thing that's different from DFS is that in DFS, the people that you're competing against most of them made their lineups a few hours before. And here we're going up against people who made their lineups months and months before, almost in a previous year. And so
literally
like it's crazy. So the amount, so if you wanted to say, you know what, I am going to triple stack Josh Downs and the DK Millie, I think the case for it would be like 1,200 isn't 1,200. 1,200 is like
a lot of dead
800.
Yeah, a lot of dead
so
teams.
I'm just going to try to get, I'm still going to try to get a few. Like, I don't know that you kind of use the DK Millie as like the big field tournament of best ball, but I don't even know that we have a large size tournament, in the sense of how many teams are in week 17, like how many teams you need to take down in a single week. We kind of don't really have anything that you would consider at all equivalent to like trying to win a millionaire maker or something
not
like
even,
that.
not even in the same stratosphere of 1,200. Most people would consider 1,200 a small field DFS tournament, and I think that that's totally fine. I personally even gravitate towards quite a bit smaller than that, but that's a personal preference thing. I think a lot of like I'm just pulling up right now the week 1 contests on DraftKings. The even the $4,000 Millie Maker, right? So you have to pay $4,444 to enter one team into that. It's $1 million to first place. It's 768 people. So that is the nosebleed stakes, right? It doesn't get much higher than that for a tournament, and it's closing in on 1,000 people in that tournament. So like, you
probably need to get more things right in that tournament than you might need to in the DK Millie.
Right, because there's no dead teams.
There's no
a
dead
couple
teams.
There's always attrition. There's always some, but you know what I mean? Like percentage basis wise, there's like it's literally a handful of the 768 are paying the rake when you get to the 1,200 person fight. I mean, dude, I got 3 teams to week 17 on DraftKings, one in the Millie, one in the 555, and one in like the button hook or whatever. Of course, my good team was in the fucking button hook, which was whatever. It was like 20 grand at first. I got like 9 or something like
was
that.
In the fucking
but,
button hook as a
yeah, like there's millions of dollars up for grabs, and I get a really good team into the $9 single entry or whatever final. Which I mean, no one's complaining, but you know what I mean. My Millie team, I was one of the teams that was paying the rake. Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence team was my team. For anyone that doesn't remember, Jalen Hurts did not play, and Trevor Lawrence played like a quarter in week 17 because they were resting up for week 18. Is that what's going to happen? No. But guys will we will be having guys sitting out in week 17.
Yeah, you would not have dialed up those 2 quarterbacks in your your best ball style DFS tournament. Right. If you were making it that morning.
People were playing Gardner Minshew, and Gardner Minshew was probably the huge fucking talking point of DFS for that little stretch or whatever when Jalen Hurts was out. I mean, you were not, like you said, you were not playing those guys, and I consider like the teams that I draft definitely not. I'm not the guy that's drafting the 6 quarterback teams and the horrible teams with no correlation and reaching on guys. I'm building teams I think are very good. And I got to week 17 and I was the one paying the rake with the dead team, right? It can happen to anyone. And so there's a lot of them.
It's really hard to make the finals. So when you make the finals, like your best team probably won't make the finals. Like if you get a team to the finals, it might be, I don't know, like a 75th percentile team for you, 80th percentile maybe. Yep. Like it's not going to be, I had a team that I called very fun 0 running back team. And I looked at it all the time. And it was so fun. It had like all the guys. It had Tony Pollard, and it was like this great team. Wide receiver firepower, and it's just like I just would check on. I didn't really like check that many of my best ball teams, but I just checked very fun 0 running back team, like probably every week for the last like 5 or 6 weeks of the season, and it got bounced in week 16. It didn't. It made it to the semifinals, but then it got bounced. If you had given me a chance to like swap that team for the team that won, like I wouldn't have even thought about it. I feel like very fun 0 running back team can come back to life. Hell yeah.
Yep. And we'd be having a very different. You would have been taking Sklansky bucks to the bank as opposed to the my CLV or your.
Don't you know what a good pick Tony Pollard was?
Yeah. Yes. My favorite. It's really funny you say that. Just super quick side tangent. I think we all have that where. You draft hundreds of teams or you're even into the four digits. You can't track all of them. But as the season is going on, right, we're all looking, what's the fun of drafting all these teams? We're not sweating them, week. Let me tell you, when Sam Darnold was leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns after week 4, I was checking a lot of teams that were very, very fun. And by week 12 or whatever, we were not checking those teams anymore. They were not so fun anymore. But the point, it's fun. There's one team in particular that was again, naturally we like 0 running back teams, but it was a 0 running back team. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Vikings, big Viking stack, big Dolphin stack with, Pollard, Ramondre, of course not Jacobs, but like Samaje Perine was on that team, like fucking nailed absolutely everything. smash team. Blew everybody out of the like. It was going to advance. Like I knew it by like week 11 or whatever. Like it was over, right? I nailed everything. And then you get to week 16, right? And the old Packers dunk on the I think it was that, right? Was it Packers Vikings or whatever? But anyway, Tua.
That was week 17.
17. Yeah, you're right. So what was 16? Yes. So Giants, right? 27-24. I'm trying to look at it really quickly right now. I think Cousins was okay. Yeah. Oh, that was the Hawkinson week. It all goes to fucking TJ Hawkinson. I know Jefferson was, obviously good or whatever, but then the Dolphins failed. It was just a shit show. I'm trying to remember the Dolphins thing too. I'm trying to remember how the team failed. But anyway, long story short, right? This team crushed. It probably would have done well in the regular, like if we had the regular season prizes stuff now, like, would have done well. It wasn't like at the very top, but was doing well. No chance. Has no chance. And same thing as you. If I could have signed up and said, give me this team, into week 17, like, oh my God. And even then, guess what? It would have got to week 17 and I wouldn't have won shit because it had Justin Jefferson and it didn't have anybody that did anything in week 17. But I would have showed up and I would have said, this team projects like one of the best teams in this week 17 final, 100%. But Ramondre failed and Justin Jefferson failed and the Dolphins wide receivers basically failed and like everything failed. But the team was awesome. And so again, it's like how hard it is. Like everything comes back to that, right? How hard all of this is and what we're trying to accomplish with our teams. And we've talked about it a ton that like you're just trying to hope that when you scratch off that lottery ticket, that those numbers say 3 million. They don't say, right, free ticket or whatever, because like, most of the time it's going to say free ticket. So how the fuck do I make it when I scratch that baby off? Like it's these little micro levers. And the biggest one is like, I want to be able to scratch off, right, as few numbers as I need to get I want to match 2, right? I want to match 2 numbers. I don't want to have to do the whole bingo board. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to scratch off the whole bingo thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was trying to find so this actually got knocked out in the semis, but yeah, it was Allen and Mahomes. That's why it was so fun because I actually pulled off Allen and Mahomes on the team, and
that's amazing.
Pollard. I had my boy Rashad White, so I had like all like my favorite guys were all my brand guys were on that team. I think your point about like you're just trying to match 2 is key. Like you're trying to be able to have a path that requires as few things as possible is really kind of the summation.
And like you said, so as few things as possible, and the ones that when they do happen, they win you, right? Because there are things that you can build. You can build a team that says, I only need these 5. You said, Eric and Pat said, I just need to get less things right. Here's my 5 things I need to get right. But it's a combination of all things that really aren't gonna even if they do, even if you are right, even if they do hit, you scratch it off and you got the 2 numbers match, but the 2 numbers match and it's still just a free ticket because doesn't have the winning upside. And the only thing I'll add to that is what you said before. Sometimes it's not always Kadarius Toney, and it's not always Trey Lance, and it's not always Sky Moore, and it's not always those kinds of swings on every single team. It's kind of like what I would call, if we were appropriately putting rankings into like on Underdog or DraftKings or whatever, they would be dynamic, not static, right? They're static right now. You load them up and you can't change them when the draft. I mean, you can move guys around your queue, but you can't change your draft rankings. Like there are times when those boring guys need to be moved up when you're in that draft. Like you said, when I drafted Breece, I need something different alongside Breece, right? Or you just have a stack. Like, guess what? You bet on that gross offense or whatever. Tough shit. You need that gross offense to be better than expected. So you got to take that dusty veteran or whatever, right? You bet big on the Bills. You don't have any more Patriots or whatever, and you've drafted Hunter Henry on every fucking team already. It's like, well, I guess Devontae Parker or Juju got to do something on this team. Like sometimes that
week, right? Like that's the other thing. Like you're just for a week, man.
You're not saying they're going to be 3rd round picks next year. You're just saying they happen to need to fill a job for that specific team.
this is where I think the DFS experience really is helpful, because there's players that like, they're like, you know, when you go from just kind of a managed league, and you know, especially if you're kind of like of the zero running back type of thing, where you're like, you know, who's like kind of the grossest possible like zero running back, like, come on man, seriously, we're really doing this? Like, probably like Miles Sanders would be the example this year, right?
Yes.
But like,
I mean, it's Mike from the last few years. It's Mike Davis, right?
It's Mike Davis from the last few years, yeah. But like, yeah, this year is probably Miles Sanders.
David Montgomery last year.
David Montgomery, yeah. But I probably played David Montgomery in DFS last year.
100%.
Like, I don't actually remember doing it. I blacked it out, but I'm pretty sure I did.
I played him against the Lions. He sucked. It was a fucking terrible decision,
Yeah.
as it always is to play David Montgomery. But I know I played him. I can tell you I played him.
Yeah. So like hard fade, or like Najee, right? Like, I'm hard fading Najee this year. Like, I can imagine a spot where like, okay, Jalen Warren's out. They're in some like extreme like run funnel situation. He's actually ran like pretty well over the last 3 weeks. Pickett's looking good. The offense is moving pretty well. You know,
or even shootout catching a bunch of check downs, right? That's why Lenny was always get the touchdowns and catch the check downs. I don't give a shit if you're good or not.
He doesn't look like he's going to be all that popular, because there's, you know, people are kind of breaking ties towards other backs, and I'm like, I just need him for this week. I just need Najee to do something for me this week. It's about as out on a kind of player, like from a sort of talent for the price perspective as I can be, but it's just a week, man. Like, you know, so you can, and it's like, and all these other things are saying, no, for this week, like, this is actually a pretty good play. If listen, if you don't feel like taking down this 400 person tournament, like, don't do it. But like, if you want to, like, Najee Harris is actually a pretty good way to set yourself up to do it this week. That's that you start to have to think through it like that, instead of like, oh, Najee Harris, not for me, you know. And it's so much more fun to do it that way. And I'll kind of take those types of stands in like an overall best ball portfolio sometimes, especially with an expensive player. But, you know, I think I've drafted Najee. Maybe I should have used someone that I've like actually taken.
Drafted. Yes.
But I guarantee you I've taken him at least like once. Yeah, I have. I've taken Najee Harris. Okay. I've done it. It has to fall just right.
Dude, Miles Sanders is that for me. I think he is a straight up horrible pick at his current price.
2% Miles Sanders.
But there are other smart people that disagree, and I'm not saying that that's the reason why I'm gonna, you know, I'm not gonna just give in because other people, like me and you, disagree about a lot of different things. Neither of us fucking give in, but we can appreciate what the other person is saying, right? So like, I really. I mean,
it does make me like with the Tony thing, right? Like, that's part of the reason I want to be more. It's not that I'm going to just like, oh, Eric said I should draft him at 6-7 tournament, do that. But like, right, when the bet changes, it did make me. You're part of the reason where I'm like, I really don't feel like getting buried by Kadarius Toney, and I think he could do it.
Right. You don't want, you can see like, you don't agree necessarily with the assessment of what X, Y, Z about a certain player. You disagree on that guy, right? I actually, it's funny. I don't want to get into this because you've already spent, about 3 days of your life debating Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. This is one of those where I don't believe in Dalton Kincaid. I don't believe he, like, if I were betting on something, I would bet against him.
He's a great example of this, though.
But he is maybe the widest range of outcomes player in the entire player pool. And so I will draft him on teams where it makes sense. And again, you're talking about like the I need P Ryan on the Breece team. I haven't drafted a tight end, up until then. Maybe I got a good, whatever. I have a good zero running back team, but Warren's already off the board. Kincaid has fallen past ADP. I need some fucking tight end juice, Yeah, maybe I have Ramondre on that time. I'm making things up, right? I need something. I need a swing. I know that Dalton Kincaid could be literally the worst.
Say Juju here.
And absolutely not.
Because you definitely don't have him.
Absolutely not. Juju is Adam Thielen for me. He doesn't exist in we scroll past him. But like, I need that, right? I need Dalton Kincaid. If you are asking me to be right and predict something, I would say I don't think Dalton Kincaid is going to do anything for fantasy this year. But I'm also willing to accept this is a first round pick tight end. we've been drafting all these other Bills for years because we know there's juice after Stephon Diggs in this offense. Maybe it's him. I don't know. It could be. And if he hits, he is the Kadarius Toney of tight end. If Dalton Kincaid hits, as he is Kadarius Toney of tight ends, you're getting him for cheap and probably more valuable, even more valuable to hit because he's a tight end and not a wide receiver. And I'm like, I'll take him. You know what I mean? I'm willing to set aside what I think about this situation and think about this player and all in the offense and right. Everything I agree. I couldn't agree more with everything like you outlined, in 12, right? The 12 personnel stuff and why all that is like fool's gold and rookie tight ends. Everybody will preach till the cows come home about, right, the history of rookie tight end. I get it. I know all of that. But there are times when I think Dalton Kincaid is the right pick on certain
Me
teams.
Too. Me too. I spent an hour arguing against him. I think he's sometimes pretty good pick.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
Sometimes.
And isn't that freeing? That's like this like getting less things right. I know that's not necessarily getting less things right, but kind of in the where you're willing to, on certain teams, acknowledge the fact that other things are more important than our specific opinion about that player in a vacuum, right? And it really kind of all does go back to like getting less on certain. Why does he make sense on certain teams? It's because I'm not trying to be right about that guy. I need a Bill, or I need a home run swing at tight end, or I need whatever, right? I need something.
Here's an example.
He fills that. He's the chess piece. Right? No one has player takes about which their favorite fucking chess piece is. You just play the one that does the right thing, right? They all move in different, they serve different purposes. All the players serve different purposes, right?
The queen is probably the best chess piece, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you probably favor the queen, but that's Justin Jefferson. Right? Guess what? You don't get to use the queen on every. You don't get to use the queen on every single move. Sometimes you got to use the pawns. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's obviously a stupid analogy, but the point everyone serves a purpose. Not everyone. I don't think Mike Gesicki serves a purpose, right? I obviously don't think Juju or Adam, but those are just my personal opinion. You could think that they serve a purpose, and that's totally fine. But they all really pretty much do serve a purpose. You just got to figure out what that purpose is, and then slot them in when the time comes for that purpose.
100%. And if you think about it that way, right, then it's like, I don't want to draft Dalton Kincaid very often because I think that the market has kind of lost their minds a little bit with what they're asking for from Dalton Kincaid generally. But what am I asking for from Dalton Kincaid? Let's say I have, a Patrick Mahomes stack, and I've got all this kind of stuff built up around the Bengals game, and then Dalton Kincaid comes along, like 3 picks past ADP, like, get out of here, Dalton Kincaid. Like, I'm not interested whatsoever. Like, you don't do anything for this team. And, even if I don't have a tight end, I mean, I can go find tight end later. I'm probably going to want to leave a spot open for Smith and I can grab Michael Mayer. I can get Sam Laporta if I want. Like, I don't need Dalton Kincaid. Go away. But he definitely becomes more interesting if I have Josh Allen. Even then, though, I probably, with Dalton Kincaid, I want to push it a little bit, see if I can get him at an ADP discount, even with Allen, because I think he's overpriced. I might not push it too much, but I definitely would prefer that. And that's going to give me, if I can get it, right, now I've got Josh Allen stacked with, Gabe Davis and Kincaid and James Cook. And I've got Kincaid at a really cheap price, and my team's like a little bit stronger at running back than it otherwise would be if I had taken Kincaid where he normally goes. And so I'm like, I've got this Kincaid share. I don't have that many, but this it's really strong.
Right. You get Warren. It can be a big difference.
I get Warren,
Michael. You get Warren instead of Devin Singletary or whatever.
Right. That could be a big difference, I think. Yeah. So I'm doing it like that. But what if I have Josh Allen, got a nice value on the 3rd round, but then JSN fell to the mid-6th, because I got Allen mid-3rd. I'm drafting down the middle here. And then I got JSN mid-6th. I'm taking that. Sorry, Gabe.
Mm-hmm.
Gabe doesn't come back to me in the 7th. I've now got naked Allen. At that point, like, I'd really like to get Cook, especially since he's got, some receiving potential.
Yep.
At that point, like, a slight reach for Dalton Kincaid kind of might be what I'm looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, because I already bet Josh Allen's having a huge week 17. I know that. And I don't have any other pieces. So getting that pass catcher and giving myself a chance to capture that touchdown twice capture potentially a couple touchdowns twice, I think becomes more important. I don't have a stacking partner yet with Josh Allen, so I would actually probably reach a little for Dalton Kincaid. And this is a player that I, am on record saying is wildly overpriced.
But it really, it's like we all have to learn this less. It's kind of like you gotta. It's like stupid again, like cheesy things or whatever, right? The kid that's growing up like playing sports or whatever, you got to strike out in little league baseball before you can become a you kind of got to fall down, right? You got to pick yourself back up, all that stupid cliche bullshit. But it's kind of like that here, where, and I think this is a struggle for most people. I think we are. One of our biggest flaws in terms of fantasy and just gambling in general is overconfidence. It's probably the number one biggest flaw that we have as fantasy sports players. We all have it. God knows I do. We're overconfident about every opinion that we have, which is really kind of funny when you think about it.
I'm overconfident too, but I'm also right, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I keep telling myself as I.
Isn't it crazy how wrong we are about everything right now? Like I feel very confident about a lot of things that I am like so wrong about. And it's gonna be a problem in like a month when I realize it. But for now, it's fine.
I know this is the best time of the year because you're also getting so much confirmation bias. Like most of it is useless, right?
So but true. You get so much confirmation bias too.
It's absolutely fucking amazing, dude. Every Jalen Hyatt touchdown has been so fun because I was the guy. I was that guy saying, "Why is he fall? Why are we getting?" I know he was overpriced when way back, but I'm like, he's not a fucking 18th round pick. Like you guys have you're talking about losing your minds on Dalton Kincaid. That's what we have lost our mind. Like, what are you talking about? We're taking, again, I gotta find somebody else besides Juju, but we're taking Juju Smith-Schuster at 100 overall, and this dude is in the last round. Like, what is happening? What am I missing? But so Hunter Henry, frankly, like you said, his price doesn't move. How is there like six?
I would submit Alan Lazard as a new potential whipping boy.
Yes, I like that one. That's a good one. It was like Russell Gage before, right? Like last year or 2 years ago or whatever. Like Russell Gage, for whatever reason, was going in like the 6th round or 7th round, and it's like, guys, what are we doing? This is Russell Gage, right? You know that.
Marquez Callaway was the
Marquez Callaway is the absolute best one. That was
I don't think it's collectively. I don't think we can ever top. I believe 7th round Marquez Callaway. Am I right about that?
He was not being drafted when the tournament opened. Literally undrafted. This is you want to victory lap something. I got a lot of L's that I've taken over the last couple of years. But if you want CLV, that CLV I was talking about taking to the bank, Marquez Callaway was the CLV. 18th round. I was like, I remember it was, there's him and Drake.
What do I do with all the CLV? Oh,
Drake, yeah, I know. It was, you want to talk about victory lapping the preseason was he's catching all these bombs and then you hop in a draft and he goes higher and higher and higher. And you're just looking, you can go post the 18th round Marquez Callaway teams and everybody, sick team, bro. Like the team probably finished last, it was a horrible team. I'm sure it had Trey, it's like I got Trey Lance CLV
Callaway on it.
And Marquez Callaway CLV and Julio Jones CLV and all this fucking CLV of all these
I had
players.
A lot of Julio Jones CLV.
None of them scored any fantasy points, but you're goddamn right. I got good value on them. But you have to, I think, like go through that, like Trey Lance, right? Everyone does this, right? Scott, they're funny bits, and it's really funny to look back on and dunk on ourselves about all of these things. But it's everyone. Like,
but they weren't bits. Like I drafted Sky Moore. I think was my highest drafted wide receiver last year.
Right, and Kyle Pitts has been, like my highest drafted tight end, and
I'm like 99% sure he was. The only question is whether or not he was my highest drafted overall. No, Rachaad White luckily was my highest drafted overall player. So that one I can see a little easier about.
I literally ruined Darrington Evans' career. He's like gonna go try to be a YouTube streamer or a Twitch streamer or whatever. Now, drafting. That was also fun in the preseason and also lots of CLV. So, if you want to talk about the importance of all these things, at the end of the day, they need to score some fucking fantasy points. It's not just about it. But I was re-listening to most of the content that I listen to is generally not fantasy football focused. And I actually find I learn a ton of lessons that I can then apply to this as opposed to obviously I listen to you guys. I listen to Reeves, is one of my favorite analysts in the history of, awesome. I listen to lots of people, but generally a lot of my content is not, it is sports a lot of the times, sometimes. But I'm re-listening to there's a podcast called The Knuckleheads. It's a basketball podcast. It's actually Darius Miles is the host of it. But they just like interview NBA players and coaches and all that kind of stuff. And they talk about their careers and stuff. But like it's a lot of, you get behind the scenes about like where these guys come from. They tell good stories. Like Gilbert Arenas is telling the stories about when he brought a goddamn gun to the, to into the locker room and like all this crazy stuff. And Jimmy Butler is one of my favorite players. And I also find him fascinating because he's kind of not like a lot of the big name guy. He's he's from the freaking boonies in Texas, tiny little town, grew up with nothing, right? And wasn't even really a big time, went to junior college, went to Marquette and was like a role player, and then turns into one of the best basketball players on the planet. But he literally was like talking about this, and I kind of say this all the time, where we're so confident as fantasy football players that like we know what's going to happen. And then sometimes it plays out and we say, see, I told you Trey Lance sucked. I told you Sky Moore wasn't going to play, right? I told you Josh Jacobs was going to smash. And we overlooked the things that we were wrong about, but we project overconfidence. And Jimmy Butler will say he has some old friends and family and stuff that they're like, I knew Jimmy was going to make it big. See, I knew it. I saw him play when he was young. I knew he was going to make it big. And Jimmy himself said, I didn't fucking know. No. How could you know? He's like, how could you? And he's like, I love you. I appreciate you for saying that. He's like, but how could you know? I didn't know. My coaches didn't know. Like my first coach at Marquette told me to never fucking shoot. He said, pass it to the good players. Literally. He's telling this story. Jimmy Butler, NBA Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, his college coach, he gets to Marquette and he said, we got these other, you're going to play because you're the hustle guy. You play defense. He said, but when you get the ball, you pass it to the other players because they're good and you're not. And it's like, it was a different time. Obviously back then you could just talk shit to these kids or whatever, but like no one knew that about Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler didn't know that. And that's how I feel about fantasy football, where like, dude, the Eagles coaches did not know, and probably still don't, how the touches are going to be divided up between those four running backs. They don't know which running backs are going to make the team right now, So how can you be overconfident about it, right? The 49ers didn't know if Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo was going to start. How could you know, right? How could you possibly know? The teams don't know. These players themselves don't. Devontae Adams thought he was going to quit football after year 2. He was done. He sucked. He was horrible. He was having terrible, mental health issues, and he thought about quitting. And now he's one of the best wide receivers in the history of the sport. He didn't know that he was good. He actually thought himself that he sucked. So how could you know? And so like, it's just all, a long-winded way of being like, dude, overconfidence is going to be the killer of you. It's not to say like, don't take stands or don't have player takes, or it's not to say that at all. It's just to make sure you're doing it in the way that isn't just like, I always know better about all these situations. You've taken in all the risk, and you've taken in all the context and all the nuance, and you've decided this is the right bet to make, but it's not just because you know better.
Yeah. And I think like there's the kind of the original pushback that you would get on stacking and correlating is like, just be right, dude. Just pick all the right guys and then you'll win. This is easy. I don't know why you guys don't just pick all the right guys. So, if you aren't even open to taking a guy, despite having like stacked up that game, despite his price being palatable enough to where you're saying, in the 12th round, probably really only do need 1 week out of Dalton Kincaid if it's week 17 for him to pay off this price, given that I've bet on Josh Allen to have a big week. That's the only way I'm taking this tournament down because, I have one quarterback to this point. I'm probably tacking on someone cheap, and my really only path is Josh Allen blowing up. That's where I would say like the overconfidence can be really like it can impact you in a negative way. If you're not even open to the idea of taking Kincaid in those situations.
Yep.
Again, not to say that you can't try to push it and get an ADP value but it's just like, how confident are you? Like, it's at least good to check in with yourself and be like, and look, I mean, I don't have that much Kincaid. I'm at like 2.5%. So there's only so many times where I'm not loading up on Josh Allen, which is maybe one of the reasons, but
Correct,
I'm
same.
like slightly underweight Allen. So, but I am open to the idea of taking him in the right circumstances. I am also open to the idea of Najee Harris really making me gut punching me, right? I'm open to the idea of Najee Harris gut punching me and scoring a couple touchdowns in the right week and just having this be a really annoying season where Najee Harris gets there despite, me feeling like he is just not well priced. That could happen. I don't think I'm going to play it like that's going to happen.
Right.
I don't think I'm going to hedge my strong feeling that like Najee Harris is not a very good pick, but I don't think it's impossible that he like just kind of gets me real good. Uppercut to the gut.
If just think about how easy the path is if Kenny Pickett's good. That's really all. Like Najee could still absolutely suck, but if Kenny Pickett is just like way, way, way better than, and I mean, I'm not saying
offensive line is better than I think it's going to be.
Yeah, everything just falls into place, right? And maybe the schedule ends up being a lot easier than you think. Crazy shit happens. Like we didn't think a couple of years ago that the Ravens were going to be the best goddamn matchup for every offense that they played for the whole second half of the season. But like it just chaos just happens. And next thing you know, Najee scores 18 touchdowns, and he's still only averaging 4 yards a carry, right? But he catches some checkdowns and he gets a bunch of goal. Jamal Williams just scored 1 billion touchdowns. Is Jamal Williams an amazing football player? No. Variance fucking happens. Amon-Ra gets tackled at the 1 every freaking week, and Jamal punches it in. That can happen, dude. And if you're just in that role, you were probably right about Najee Harris. He was overpriced, right? His expectations were in line with your take, but just because he's the big back on the Steelers and maybe their offense is better and the situation falls into it, poof, smash, absolutely dunks on you, and you don't win this year.
Yeah, which is definitely something that could happen. And that's, I would say, like, okay, Najee Harris is available at 503. Am I out? No, I think I'm going to take him because he could, so that the ADP discount is one way to get on there. I think with the Zay Flowers one that you brought up earlier, Zay Flowers and Bateman, I started taking Zay Flowers and Bateman together because I was like, Bateman over Flowers, like, come on. But then I'm like, I started to get the feeling that was probably overconfident, and so I just like started taking Flowers with Bateman.
It's the same thing that happened to me. Yeah, I was always Bateman.
Yeah, and the market is corrected like so much towards Flowers and against Bateman that you can't even really do that now. But there was a time where you definitely could, but now it's easy for me to take Flowers because I took him with Bateman, and now Flowers is a guy I take, and I feel fine about him. And he's also continued to be hyped up. But that's one way. Kind of taking both guys together is a way to kind of get that player who you're not as confident about in the mix. If Najee Harris were to fall to the 6th round because he didn't get any, because it's like unclear that he's the starter or something, I still wouldn't take him. Who am I kidding? But I would think about it. I'm like, what would I have to do to actually? What fall would lead me to think that Najee Harris? I mean, but in a random draft, right, where it's like, if Najee Harris would have fall to like the 6'11" or something, I would be like, come on, fall,
100%.
I would be so excited to get that. So some of this is, and honestly, part of it is I probably should hedge more and take Harris, right? Because if I'm psyched to take him at the 6'12", then I should probably just mix him in occasionally. I don't think I'm going to play it like that, but maybe I should.
But that's also, there's a difference between like you can admit that you're right, which you just did. We just did. There's a path that we are very, very wrong about Najee Harris, right? And that kills us. But it's also, I also still am choosing to use my US American dollars to put to use in a different way, right? Like you play in any form of basically gambling or like DFS, right? We all play different styles of DFS. Even the best players on the planet play different styles. So Ricky D plays a really, really, really high variance style of DFS. He goes like full fades, multiple of the chalkiest guys sometimes or whatever. He won $1 million on Thanksgiving the last year or 2 years ago, something like that. And I forget whoever like the mega chalk like running back was. He played 150 teams with 0 of that guy. And it was like, how the hell, it was, it's Thanksgiving. There's 3 games. how do you fade the
chalk and condenses in a huge way on those small slates.
But there's there's so few other alternatives. Any other he's the only person that did it, and it worked. And so he had 150 permutations around this. Obviously, lots of those failed too. But when you got 150 bullets on this one thing, right? He said, "I got to get one thing right." That's what he did. He said, "I come in," and I'm just making it up, right? Zeke fails. If Zeke fails, I'm going to win this fucking slate because I have 150 shots to do it when he fails. And he's in 75% of the teams in this tournament or whatever. It's like, that's a way to play it. You also can hedge, right? There are a lot of people that just kind of like naturally smooth things out because they understand they're cutting off their ceiling, but it's risk mitigation as well, right? You're covering more bases because you don't always want to go to zero when you're wrong, right? You fade the 75% owned guy, he hits, there goes 100, whatever, your 100, $1,500, poof, gone right down the drain. That's a personal preference and play style. I am a more aggressive player in all forms of this. In DFS, I am a very aggressive player. When I do I generally am a single entry or a couple entry type guy, and I like I'll go all in on multiple different things and, rotate a couple things around them, right? Play a different running back and a different defense, but I play the same game stack that I played before or whatever. I'll play when I play 150. Usually it is because I'm going all in on literally one.
That's stack. The only time I really do it too, is I'm like, all right,
I'm going to play 150 Howl teams in week one, just because it's fun. It's also, it's like, I usually do it just because I do think the Howl Cardinals game it's a very advantageous spot for him, but also, I mean, come on, you got a brand to uphold. You can't talk about Sam Howell for months and months and months, and then he's 4,900 week one against the Cardinals and not put that to good use.
I might do that too, just so I can victory lap a Howell week one DFS, and then also post a credit like a 0.7% Howell exposure in best ball. Just get it both ways.
That would be absolutely epic. Be like, see, I told you that that you could absolutely victory lap and troll the living shit out of anybody in that scenario. But again, to your point,
pretty enticing.
Those are different pillars of the game. You can acknowledge the fact that Najee Harris could bury you, but not want to devote your money that way.
Yeah,
and other people could just say, no, I'm not comfortable with it. Quite frankly, obviously I watch you guys. Pete is a massager of his exposures. He doesn't really get very high on any individual player. He has a handful of guys he might stone fade, but generally he's kind of a smooth it out structure bro over player take, right? When he says I got to stop drafting a guy, he's like, oh yeah, I got up to 15% on that guy. I got to pull back the reins. I'm like, Peter, 15% is fucking nothing, but that's how he plays the game.
I have so many players I'm 15% on.
Exactly. And we play it differently than someone like he does. We mentioned Drew Dinkmeyer before, obviously very sharp, just at all things, kind of gambling. I think I saw last year, he didn't have anybody above 12% or something like that. He was just picking off ADP values. That's a way to play the game. 100%.
I have 25 players I'm at 15% or higher on.
Yeah. Mine is absolutely a ton. And that will slowly smooth over the course of this last month because of the Tony thing or whatever, right? You get those fallers, although like we said at the top, JK, the guys that I like are falling, which is not a great thing for the portfolio, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? If they're the best pick and that's how you want to play it, that's how it goes.
I do think so. That's a thing to reevaluate, right? Traylon Burks is someone that I have taken less of since he's fallen, because
portfolio. But do you think it's because you want to pull back the reins on him, or is it because you think he's worse with Hopkins, or how are you assessing a situation?
I think the Hopkins. I think it took some slice off the upside. I think the chances of him absolutely bombing are, I think Burks' floor has risen with the Hopkins signing, because the team is less likely to go to Will Levis. They're less likely to just be in full tank mode. That's all good for Burks. But I think his really juicy upside outcomes have decreased. And then I think part of it is sometimes it's that did hurt, his range of outcomes a bit. Let me see where he settles. And Burks has continued to really fall.
Yep.
So, if I was just taking him all the way down, I was kind of feeling like I might just be getting some prices that are also kind of bad. Because what if he kind of falls all the way? Now that he's like available in the 8th, I think I'm gonna try to get back in. I mean, I'm still very high on Burks. I'm at 18% Burks. I was taking him a lot before, and I've taken him some throughout. But he's one where I've definitely taken less of since the fall as compared to before the fall. I would say that's even true of Breece. So I haven't taken him quite as often until it's like he's in the 4th round. I'm taking him 100% of the time. But there's like I'll break ties towards Mark Andrews, or I was breaking ties towards Josh Jacobs sometimes, or Lamar Jackson even, although not really. But like during the fall, I'll sometimes ease off. And then if a guy settles and I'm like, I like this guy at this price, I don't really, I think personally, I'm willing to a point. Like, I don't think I would go to like 50% haul if he were to fall to the 4th, but I would think about it. I honestly would think about it. If he were to fall to like the late 4th, be like, the only way that I can hammer him now is going to take me to like 50% haul in my overall portfolio. I would think it through, but I don't think I'm out on doing something like that. Like, because hypothetically, right? Like if Hall were to fall to the 18th round based on pure Cook panic, like I would want 100% Hall.
Exactly. You know? And exactly. I think that's the thing about exposures and like portfolio management and all that, where people will say, what's the right percentage, right? What should you cap your exposures at? Or, you know, and of course it is risk management at the end of the day, right? Everybody can choose to, if you want to draft the same guy in every single draft, go for it. You're probably reaching a little bit too much generally, you know, rule of thumb, right? If you get to 75% on a player or something like that, you were probably reaching a good clip of the time. Just, you know, not necessarily, but generally speaking.
It'd be hard to do without it.
Like if you think about it, we talked about earlier, like there are a handful of guys or situations that we believe are like edges or whatever, right? I agree with you on Breece. I believe J.K. Dobbins is another one for me who also happens to be a faller. Frankly, the Ravens and now Bateman falling. Like there's a lot of these little situations. I think Hunter Henry should go in like the 13th round, not the 18th round or whatever. You know, like there's little things that you believe are edges because the market is generally efficient, and in the micro situations, there are going to be spots where it absolutely is not. And just like, again, on a DFS slate or in any form of peer-to-peer, you know, competition, there are exploitable spots, and not all of them are exploitable. So that's why when it comes down to the portfolio, why do I just have 8% of some guys? Because I don't really have a take. And I think, yep, price is about right. I take them when it makes sense. I end up with, you know, kind of about the field. It is what it is, right? I don't really care. George Pickens, let's just say that's a guy for me. Is like,
I think that's probably a guy for me too. Yeah.
I don't love him. I get why some people might. I see some talent. I see the flaws. I see everything. And I don't have an opinion, really. I just, whatever. So I just take him when it makes sense. I end up right about the field, and it is what it is. I'm not letting George Pickens make or break my season. I don't give a shit.
Right.
J.K. Dobbins, to me, is, especially amid this, amongst this fall, it's a bad price. It's a bad price. I think he is an absolute stone cold smash. And so you have to handle that, right? Like if you showed up to a DFS slate and Zeke was out and Tony Pollard was 5K, you would play more of Tony Pollard than you would of some other 5K running back, right? And I know it's not DFS. There are differences, but you take an edge and you push it. You don't just, right? You don't just say, oh yeah, that's an edge. Cool. I'm going to take 12% of that. If it's an edge, push that edge. Now, does that mean 15, 20, 25, 50, 70? That's up to you and how you want to handle that money. You have to be willing to lose it all on that one player, right? And that's, most people are not. I kind of am. That's just how I like to play. You know, I understand it can go poorly, but like, it's kind of like a DFS slate.
You also do this for a living, right? Yeah. You're going to play next. You know, you're going to play next year,
right?
You know, and you know how to manage a bankroll. You know how to take losses. Yeah. Like you know how to kind of deal with that type of
I lose every day. I lose every day in DFS and have made a career out of it. You get used, like it is something you have. It is something you have to get used to. I got my dick kicked in yesterday in DFS, but on Saturday I had a good day.
you mentioned like kind of learning from the failure of DFS. Like that is just like, man, DFS, the confidence that you feel. You talked about like kind of initially with this overconfidence thing, like being so confident about the specific way that a game is going to play out, and then feeling like really feeling that confidence, getting to that level of like, please don't tell me about any, like listening to stuff ahead of time and be like, this guy doesn't even know how this game's going to play out, this idiot. What is he talking about? He's acting like this thing that's definitely going to happen isn't going to happen. What a fool. And then it doesn't go like that at all, right? The game doesn't plays out completely differently. And you get, it's like, it's not even just like about, the whether or not your lineup made money or something, but just like the confidence that you can go into some of these spots with, and then it just plays out completely differently, I do think is like very helpful. You get in your reps of like just getting schooled by reality enough times where like, I think that is such a big part of it. Like at least to be able to consider, and that's again, like talking, like we are two guys who are going to make big bets on a bunch of different players this year. We're not really like hedging in a lot of spots, but
right.
But I do at least know that like, why am I so in on Breece Hall? It's not because he's not risky. He's quite risky. It's because I think he has, here's what I'll say. He is in a small sample as a player with a very good prospect profile who had high draft capital and his team feels pretty confident, it appears. And a team who has title aspirations and will presumably play their best players down the stretch. Right? But in a limited sample, he has flashed elite running back talent, and I think that's how you play the running back position in fantasy football. I think you chase the elite talents at the running back position. That's literally what legendary upside. That's how the name came about. Like that's the whole. It's like it's not. It's like my brand, but it's not like brand enforcement. It's like I literally just think this is the best way to try to win in fantasy football. Like running back is a position where the upside is what matters, like by far the most, and you're getting a chance with Breece Hall to take a guy who has the upside profile of a first round pick and get him in the third or fourth round. And that is not a profile that I think is going to come around very often, and not a profile that I want to be, all right, I'll get 13%. Like for me, I want to be like, I'm pushing in the chips on this. And look, it could fail. Like I know it could fail. I know that we only got a small sample. I know that his efficiency could be a mirage. I know that the Jets offensive line isn't that good. Like his efficiency could be worse. I know Aaron Rodgers could be done. I know there's a bunch of different ways that this could fail. They could sign Dalvin Cook still. I not only could it fail, but I could have the worst prices on this. So like I do realize that like I'm taking on risk, but I think this is a spot from the upside perspective on a position where I think you play it through the upside that isn't going to come around in very many seasons. And as I've made the bet, I've like gone and checked some stuff. Like, do I really feel this strongly about this guy? Do I think he's worth making this big bet on? And I'm like, so far, I'm like, yeah, dude, I do. I think he's a really strong upside bet. So I'm going to keep making the bet. It doesn't mean that it's definitely going to work. In most cases, it won't work. But, I think when it works, it's going to really work. And that's why I make it.
I couldn't agree more, and obviously we agree on that because we take similar, obviously different players. Although I have very big Breece bags as well, but similar approaches, and I think that's up to each individual person. Of course, we just talked through that, but it is sort of this like getting less things right approach, where Breece is, like you said, Breece is this one thing that doesn't come around all the time. Right? Again, using the DFS parallel or whatever. Same thing like if you're a sports bettor. Not every day is there a bet that you believe is a massive, like just massively mispriced, right? I do lots of sports. We have a sister site called Scores and Odds that I do stuff for, and I am following the betting markets very close. Some days there are like, let's say a strikeout prop or a rushing yardage prop where I'm just like, this dude is probably, 53 and a half yards or whatever for Tony Pollard against the Cardinals. And I'm like, excuse me? Like we project him for like 79 yards or whatever. And you're just like, I know, prop markets and limits and all that kind of stuff. But like you bet that differently than you bet the other guy who projects for 4 yards over his prop or 4 yards under his prop, right? You bet that differently. You bet Breece differently because your valuation has said Breece is a different bet than whatever, even other good bets, right? That is a different style bet. My like kind of mid-round guy we talked about, Rashad Penny. Look, if I have to listen to someone tell me that Rashad Penny gets hurt every year or it's an uncertain situation, right? The coach loves Kenny Gainwell. I fucking get it. I know. I'm well aware that Rashad Penny is the Kadarius Toney of running backs and is probably going to get hurt. And yes, I know Trey Sermon is having a good camp, right? And like I get it, dude. I get all of it. My assessment is that you don't get that. To your running back talent point, you don't get that talented of a running back in Philly,
best offensive line in the league,
behind the best offensive line in the league, with one of the best, if not the best, rushing quarterback on a team that is in a positive game script every single goddamn week, because obviously their offense is good, but their defense is maybe better, maybe even better than their offense. Run heavy, everything. The stars have aligned for Rashad Penny. Will he get hurt again? I don't know, probably. Could he just not be the guy and it's Gainwell and Swift and Boston Scott and Trace? Sure, absolutely. That could happen. And guess what? I'll lose when that happens. But I want my chips in because when that fucking hit, when Rashad Penny hits in a situation like this, it is league winning. It is competing with the guys for leading the NFL in rushing. Like it is a home run. And so I'm willing to do that.
It's 10th round Nick Chubb, basically.
Yeah, you're getting 10th round Nick Chubb on an even better offense that scores more points.
Sounds pretty good.
I think that sounds pretty good, right? So I'm putting my chips in on those, like these guys that we're doing here, and it is partly because,
or maybe Derrick Henry. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably Derrick Henry, but let's not turn it negative. Nick Chubb is a little bit more positive viewpoint than yes. Imagine if JT was going in the 10th round.
I just was getting ahead of the comment that's like, yeah, but Chubb's going to catch passes this year.
Yeah,
which might be true, but
yes, yeah. But do I give a shit, right? On underdog, but again, you're always doing all these different balancing acts. That's like what we talk about on the show constantly, all the time. There's different levers, and you all pull them.
The penny one, I don't. You probably have more penny than I'm at 15% penny. Happy to take them. I am at 9.5% Gainwell, and I've got 7% Swift. So I'm spreading it out a little bit because I don't know with Penny. Like there were rumors that like maybe he wouldn't be a lock to make the roster. There's rumors they like Trey Sermon for some fucking reason. There's a little bit of uncertainty around here. But like if it's not Penny, I think Swift or Gainwell is going to be a smash.
Absolutely.
So I want to be at least kind of even. Gainwell's so cheap too that I want to be overweight him.
I've been really taking him lately, and I know it's reacting a little bit too late. But again, kind of like the Mims thing, that's the point of drafting.
He's still priced well.
It doesn't matter, and so I'm basically betting against Swift, to be totally honest. I'm taking Penny, and now I've kind of been hammering Gainwell on non-Penny teams, and even took him once with Penny. But it's mostly just a bet on Penny, obviously, but kind of a bet against Swift for me.
Yeah. I want my bet to primarily be on Penny, but also to just generally be on like Eagles running back.
Yep. I'll do it. And Miles Sanders did this. Miles Sanders isn't as good as probably any of these guys at football.
Yeah. Miles Sanders' best skill is probably worse than everyone else's best skill.
Correct. Absolutely. It definitely is. And so like, I'm just going to keep like, I know I'll be wrong about a lot of these things, but just like you said with the Breece profile, and just like even if it weren't Penny, dude, like I'm taking Penny because I think that the fit is like, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's perfect. But if it weren't Penny and it were somebody else, I actually don't care. This isn't even really totally a Penny talent take. It is, but it's also an Eagles take. So I think Miles Sanders sucks. I literally don't draft him this season. And he was my highest owned running back last year, give or take, one of. I took a big stand on Miles Sanders. And so it's like, you're constantly being fluid, right? It's like every year is a different slate, and every slate has a different edge to it and the best plays, right? We joke in TFS like, oh, just play the best, play the best plays or whatever. It's like That's actually kind of true in best ball for me, but I actually don't think our opponents treat it that way. In DFS, all our opponents do that. And they show up every week and they say, I'm going to play the hits, baby. You know, this running back's out. I'm playing that guy at chalk, right? Oh, this game has the highest total. Yep. I'm going to stack that one up, right? And there's this 3K tight end had 8 targets last week. Oh, that looks good. You know, I'm going to plug that guy in, right? It's
no one's probably noticed that.
Yeah,
so
nobody.
I'm going to put him in my lineup.
Yeah, geez, Darren Waller's out. Foster Moreau, let's sign me up again for that fucking travesty, you know, of every week Foster Moreau chalk 4 points or whatever. But like every week people do that in DFS, and every day when you bet on sports, you show up and you say, that's the best bet of today. I'm $100 on that one, right? But then we get to best ball. And because it's a full year that we do this thing from May to freaking January, that this whole thing is going on sometimes before, right? There's the big board and all that kind of stuff. Because of the kind of psychological impacts of losing money slowly, of losing all that money so slowly, and then having to wait to do it all over again. We don't treat it the same. Like, I'm not saying a lot of people don't treat it the same. And they're saying, I'm not drafting anybody over 20%. It's like, is he the best play? Do you believe that this guy is like a bet you want to put your chips on? Then like, why are you treating it when you show up in DFS, you play the same guy on every team. I know it's a little different, right? With snake draft and salary cap fantasy, but it's like still like, pressing your edges is a thing in any game of skill. If you're not going to press them, I don't like why play. Now, it's not always a player either, right? Like we talked about Drew, but your edge absolutely could be just like structural drafting and and ADP values and all that. Then press that edge, but press an edge.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think like if you were to ask Pete, like, okay, you know, who does keep things fairly balanced? He takes stands. It's just not as standy as our stands. But it's like I am pressing an edge. It's called smart structures.
Yeah, he's very good
at correlated lineups and stacking at good prices. I mean, you can, and that's why I think like there's a number of
drafting. He's a good drafter.
He's a good drafter. Yeah. So if you want to, some of it is like how much more variance do I want to inject into the season, or in some ways it's sort of less variance. It's like I am going to create a few sort of spots that are going to make this a little more binary for me this year. And do you want to do that or not do that? And I honestly think you could do whatever you want. Like, I don't think there's a right answer there at all. It's really just more, it's like, I don't know, risk management or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like however you want to play it, because in the seasons where your favorite player was right, the right pick, do you want to be like fully in and fully capitalize on that with the knowledge that when you're wrong about that, you're going to have really bad seasons relative to how well you drafted. So it's just,
or you just get unlucky, right? I think people view right versus wrong as that player a hit or was that player a bust?
Breece Hall probably one of the best picks last year.
Exactly. I was just going to say Breece was, in my opinion, Breece was probably going to be one of, if not the best pick. It's hard to top Josh Jacobs, I guess, but like up there with that in terms of.
Let's say Josh Jacobs. Was he a good pick or not in Best Ball Mania?
Yeah, exactly.
He kind of wasn't. Like he was, but then he really wasn't.
Right.
Which is just bad luck. That's just bad luck.
Yeah, it was absolutely,
because obviously he was a good pick. Like when we zoom out and say, was he good? He was a great pick.
Yeah, but you ran bad.
Yeah, you ran bad.
You ran really bad. And so like that I agree that is up for every single person to figure out for themselves, but that's also, it goes to every person has to figure out specifically what your edge is. Like if you're just in this to have fun, throw some money at it and sweat some teams, by all means, dude. Like trust me, sometimes I'll throw some action down on a DFS slate or in a battle royale draft or whatever. I don't necessarily think I have an edge. I just want this to sweat something. Look, we're all human. But if I'm grinding best, if you're a sicko listening to this and I'm reading all of Pat's stuff, right? I'm in all the discords trying to figure this out. I'm grinding. You have to figure out some form of an edge. Again, I know people probably get sick of like the DFS thing. It took me a long time to figure out what my edge even was, or if I didn't have one to begin with. But over a long, I kept kept depositing every Sunday on FanDuel, playing the Sunday
paying people to teach you what your edge was.
Yes, exactly. And I was depositing and playing the Sunday Million because it was $1 million to first place. And I just kept saying, why do I keep having to deposit, $250 to play 10 teams into this every Sunday? And I keep losing and I keep losing and I keep losing. And then you slowly figure out over time, I figured out my skill set is not suited to that tournament. Not only was I making the mistakes I talked about earlier in terms of like thinking I knew better and just out footballing people, but I'm not a good MME player. It's like my brain functions best in these smaller field tournaments. That is where I excel. And like the game theory elements of the smaller field tournaments and the live final qualify, like winner take all shit. Like that is where my skill set comes in. My skill set in best ball, right, is I have certain edges, like I believe in the Rashad Penny thing. I believe I can diagnose certain things. Like Pete is an awesome drafter. Pete is really good at reading rooms. I think that's one of my skills as well. Like when do we push this? When do we try to push this guy? When do we, this is the piss boy room. When's the avalanche coming? When is the news going to make this guy fall a little bit?
Can we get away with taking this guy here? Like I draft him every Wednesday. I'm always like, can we do it? Like, I like this guy. Can we get away with it?
Exactly. And he's one of the best at that. And I think he would tell you he has his player takes too, but he doesn't believe that that's his biggest, edge that he has. So he doesn't push that edge that much. Whereas I believe there are a handful of players every year I do think I have a big edge with. So I push them. But then the rest of it, I am doing the drafting thing, right? But you have to figure out what your specific edge is. And it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And I also think like I tend to push my player take edge with players who are volatile, so it becomes it's also sort of like understanding kind of what that edge is going to ultimately turn into. Like I was overweight Ramondre, right? Volatile player, bet on talent play. He popped in a lot of the prospect stuff that I like. I was very high on him the year before. I thought he was a really underrated prospect. I kind of had to like remind myself not to get too distracted by the shiny new objects of the incoming rookie class, but I was backing on Ramondre. And that was one, especially when he was a bit cheaper before he started moving up, definitely one you want to be high on. But like, I kind of recognize I'm going to miss on a number of my play. Like Sky Moore was, like I said, I was very in on Sky Moore. I was very in on Garrett Wilson though. Like, like I was really in on, this was when I really kicked myself on, because in best ball I wasn't nearly in on Justin Jefferson enough. I was in on Jalen Reagor, but in Dynasty that same year I was very in on both. And so that's like, so sometimes you kind of like going, I screwed this one up. My edge was actually like this group of players.
Right.
And I got like out of whack on where I was among that group. And so that's something I try to keep in mind. Like my edge might be not like this one dude, but a portfolio of like the rookie tight ends, for example, like
a cohort. It's Laporta and cohort. Mayer, and it's that cohort of players. It's not just Mayer or just Laporta. Yeah.
I started trying to mix in a little more Laporta because I was getting a little heavy on Mayer, and so and I don't think Kincaid's a bad prospect, so that's part of the reason why I'm going, okay, fine, I'll take him if I can get. I'm going to try to figure out ways I can get some of them so I don't, get completely locked out. But yeah, just also understanding that, like, if you're trying to find a rookie breakout, you're going to probably take some guys who don't do anything.
Yep.
Like I'm willing to take Michael Wilson right now because he's getting a lot of talk at Cardinals camp, and I think he could be a starter by the end of the season, 2 wide receiver sets, based on the fact that they took him in the 3rd round, and he's like pretty athletic. But like taking a pretty unproductive 3rd round rookie at like anything other than like once in a while is going to lead to some dead roster spots, regardless of what they're saying in training camp. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just understanding I'm going to press this edge. Here's the risk that it comes with. Here's what your edge is sort of likely to yield in sort of a range of outcomes. Like, I'm willing to press the Breece thing because I think this comes with so much upside. But when I press my edge, sometimes it blows up in my face. But that's something I'm willing to accept because I do think that it is an edge to to play the running back position through upside in the early rounds, for example.
Yep. And I will just add, I believe in that in not really necessarily in any one individual player at the running back position, but actually from a later round perspective, what has been a gold mine is kind of assessing a lot of the backups and navigating your way. How do you get to, I know we've talked about the Evans Pirine thing, but this also just talk about kicking yourself. Like one of the very first, before Spike Week was a thing, we came up with the name, but I was still doing videos on the Roto Grinders YouTube account as it was kind of like, okay, just run with this best ball thing and see if it's of interest to anybody. And then like the whole industry exploded. But one of the first videos was on backup and contingent value running backs that I did. Don't go watch it. The videos are truly horrible, but the subject matter was fine. Samaje, my premise was there are all these running backs on awesome offenses, or they're awesome for fantasy or whatever, and the backups are either going in the last round or undrafted. And Samaje Perine was one of the guys. I'm like, this is the very clear handcuff to Joe Mixon, was going in the second round at the time, maybe even late first. I'm like, this is the very clear handcuff to Joe Mixon on one of the best offenses in the NFL, and no one drafts him. And like that was like a hit. But again, it was that cohort of like, okay, that's how we got. I know Darrington Evans didn't work, right? But like that's how we got Pirine. That's how we ended with Sony Michel and all these late round guys that end up hitting, right? They become, you want to find the Tony Pollard and the AJ Dillon, who are the contingent, Kareem Hunt a couple of years ago, the contingent value backs that now everybody's drafting in like the 6th or 7th round because they're so valuable when they come through. Those guys end up right. Eli Mitchell, when Raheem Mostert got hurt, it was actually, I did not draft Eli Mitchell. I drafted Trey Sermon like a fucking moron. But like when Raheem Mostert goes down, Eli Mitchell steps up. I'm like, Jesus, now you have a top 12 back, in the 18th round or whatever. But that's a cohort of those guys. And I understand any one individual guy in a vacuum is almost assuredly a zero. Like almost assuredly a zero, and I'm going to have misses, right? Chris Evans, you're going to pick Chris Evans over Samaje Perine in plenty of examples. But when they hit, when that cohort of players hits, it is tournament winning type players, right? When Sony Michel comes through and is the lead running back for the Rams because Cam Akers blew out his Achilles, and it's not whatever, Darrell Henderson or whatever, like that wins you tournaments because you're getting a guy dropping 20 every single week in the 18th round of your draft. And like Michael Wilson as the example, I draft him too. I draft lots of the late round rookie wide receivers. Can they hit in a big way? Absolutely. Is it very, very, very difficult for those guys? Because they got to find the field and then become a superstar. The running back doesn't got to be a superstar. They just need the dude in front of them to get hurt. Right. You know what I mean? And so I'm not hating on like I said, I draft Michael Wilson. Tyler Scott is my boy. That's my flavor of the month or week or whatever for the Bears, because I don't think Claypool is very good, and Mooney isn't any. I like that. And Mooney isn't anything I'm scared of, and he's a deep threat. So dude, just do what Taekwon did for you. Just catch that long touchdown in week 17. But we do got to get out of here. The people will love the fact that we went back to another marathon episode. And actually my wife texted me and said, who are you talking to for 2.5 hours? And I said, guess. It's the only person that I talked to for 2.5 hours over the course of the summer. But I do got to run and go.
Yeah, we skipped a couple episodes and then we did like 3 in 1.
Exactly. And we really did. We were talking about getting less things right, but we covered a lot of different ground. But speaking of that, I know you
hopefully
guys
got a few things right in this episode.
We tried to get more things right in this episode very, very clearly. But I know you guys are doing tons of drafts, and you got all kinds of stuff going on. Anything that you want to push out there for the few people that have still stuck with us?
Yeah, I mean, rankings, all that good stuff at Legendary Upside. I'm working on a tight end article that I'm hoping to have out later this week. I had an article last week out on stacking, and it was a very short article that was, I think, kind of just I always enjoy when like an article just pops in my head, like, oh, and then it actually only takes me like 1,000 words to communicate the idea, which this was one of those. And Michael Wilson was kind of the guy who inspired it, because I was like, I don't really want to take Kyler Murray just to get more Michael Wilson. And I'm honestly at the point where, like, if I have Penny, I'll take Wilson now.
Yeah.
I don't really need. I mean, I'm kind of open to the idea of even taking like him alone, just because he's getting like a consistent buzz in camp. But I thought Murray is risky, and so if I'm looking for an excuse to draft this risky 18th round wide receiver, adding his risky quarterback doesn't seem like all that sharp.
Right.
So why don't I tack him onto Jalen Hurts teams? And what am I betting on with Michael Wilson in the 18th round? I'm betting on a week 17 spike week. That's what I'm betting on. So why wouldn't I just put it as the bring back? And so using those bringbacks as a way to get, to get some of that risk onto your team in sort of palatable ways. And it's like, hey, you're betting on that final week anyway. And attacking some of these uncertain situations with quarterbacks and all that, just doing it. Honestly, I've been kind of doing this the whole season with Purdy, and like if I set up the Washington thing, if I can manage it, I go with flip it the other way and play it through Purdy and the 49ers.
Yep.
But anyway, it's I've now rambled for longer than the article, but that one's a fun little one to check out. And then, like I said, I'll have tight end research coming out soon. I had running back research out a week or two ago. You can check that out if you missed that.
That is, it is funny. I've been doing a lot of that same thing with the risky wide receivers and finding the right way. Because like you said, it's really easy to build them in a way that it's not that we don't want to take on risk. Of course we do, but it's really easy to build them in a way where you may have just tanked this team for you could be even kind of right about the team, but you took the risk profile a little bit too far across the right. We talked about you took Breece, so let's boost up these guys who can help the Breece team get to where he can win you the tournament, right? And it's really easy to fall into the trap of drafting all the guys together that can win you the tournament, but they can't all get you there. You finished. Congrats, you finished 10th out of 12 in your week 17 score was really nice, but you punted off so many points in the regular season that you had absolutely.
You finished 10th in your league. You would have won the whole tournament, but you finished 10th in your 12-team league.
Right. When I'll be cursing all my Tutu Atwell teams when he catches 2 touchdowns in week 17 because he's attached to, there's Tutu and Jalen Hyatt and Jerome Ford and all these guys are all on the same team, and it's like, buddy, you do need some points for the first 10 weeks of the season or whatever. For us here at Spike Week, I did just want to mention August is what I'm calling drafters month. Obviously, everyone's super familiar with Underdog and DraftKings. I do think maybe drafters honestly doesn't get as much hype probably as it deserves. They made a lot of awesome updates to the app and the website and all that. The drafting experience I actually find to be really fun. And I think some of the conversation for some people, particularly if you're coming over from a managed league or anything like that, around the fantasy playoffs and week 17 and all the things we talked about, for a couple hours here can be a little bit laborious or a little bit maybe too complicated. Well, we got that solved for you with drafters, right? Draft that team, score the most points. End of discussion. You don't got to worry about advancing. You don't got to worry about week 17 correlation. None of that stuff. Draft the best.
Maybe some singles and double stacks you can still do.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still definitely ways to get less things right for sure on drafters.
But you got to get more things right.
But you also have to get more things right, and it's a little bit of a different game. It's also full PPR and 20 rounds, which I kind of like a little bit more personally for me. And so tonight, actually, I know I'm saying this tonight. It'll be out by the time this gets posted to YouTube and the podcast feed. Rob and I are drafting a team on Drafters, and we're going to be putting out a ton of content. Plus, you can also get a free month of Spike Week. So you really want to get a super cheap access to Spike Week. If you use that promo code up in the corner for Drafters, use promo code Spike. There's just a form on the website. I can put a link in the description that if you have not yet signed up for Drafters, you can get a free month of Spike Week. So sign up for Pat, sign up for Drafters. The next thing you know, you're going to have like Spike Week for almost nothing for a really long time.
I will say, if you're also trying to just get the most out of this sign up that you're about to do, I still do have, if you sign up for a season-long Legendary Upside subscription, I still have some $50 Underdog credits. So if you sign up for the season-long, it's $99 for the year, but you get $50 off with Underdog. You get 40% off Spike Week. Then you tackle on the free month of Spike Week. I mean, you're just like swimming in value right now.
Yes, you are, and it is up to $100 free on Drafters. So there's just like free money being handed out. That is the nice thing about, and we will now close. This is the nice thing about like the new big industry or whatever. It was like the early days of DFS. These sites are all competing, right? Which is really, the competition for them is really good for us. DraftKings has got commercial. There's, during the Hall of Fame game, there's best ball commercials and stuff. It's heating up, which is really means a lot of free money and a lot of awesome tournaments and stuff for us. But I was going to do it for us. Obviously, make sure you're probably already following Pat, but also go check out the Legendary Upside YouTube, where this will be posted on both of our YouTubes. We'll be back next week with another probably marathon episode. So get ready, get some rest in over the course of the next week. We'll see you guys.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? If you turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.